Okay, so hey everyone. I'm SuperViperT302, in case I didn't say that already. I am the second place any percent time in this game, Space Maro the second. The superior of the two Galaxy games, in my opinion, but will not let my personal bias get in the way of everything. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, video games. Alright, so because this is one of the Super Mario Galaxy games, and those games are infamous for their downtime, we're of course going to start off with 2.5 minutes of introduction. And we're basically going to be introduced to the main movement mechanic of this game right off the bat. This is what you probably think the Galaxy games are all you do as speedruns, long jumping. It's a pretty self-explanatory mechanic. So, within a minute of this game's story, we're introduced to the Master Luma here, and he goes into Mario's hat, and he gives us the ability to spin. And spinning, basically, is kind of the main mechanic of this game, because you can break objects with it, you can hit enemies, you can gain more height from your jumps, you can take every method of transportation in the game with it. You basically cannot beat the game without spinning. So, coming up here is the first trick of the run. It's nothing too significant, but I got it. So, what I did there is what's known as a slope boost. Basically, if you land on a slope like that with a high amount of speed, and then press A within the first couple of frames of landing on it, you'll get a little burst of speed, or you'll conserve your momentum as you're jumping. Unlike Galaxy 1, you cannot climb up slopes in this game, so there's not as many cool exploits you can do with slopes, but those slope boosts are pretty cool to watch. And yeah, the opening bit of this game is not particularly interesting, to say the least. We're just kind of mashing through some text boxes here. So coming up is there's a potential for me to get a short text skip. It doesn't save too much time, but basically, so I'm going to be long jumping up to these Lumas here, and the second set of their text boxes consists of 4 text boxes. Now, if you waste a few frames on the first 2 and then get the third one frame perfect, I have no idea why this works, but for some reason if you do that, it skips the 4th text box. But I'm not really going to be going for it, I'm just going to be mashing through and we'll see what happens. So this is the set of text boxes. Yeah, I'm not going to get it. I did that. I probably lost like half a second there. It's a frame perfect input. You have to do a frame perfect input in 60 FPS, so not necessarily something that's worth going for, but it is something worth bringing up because sometimes it just happens randomly. And now we're going to be launching off into the first level of the game, and we're going straight into the first Galaxy instead of Galaxy 1 where we have the tutorial level. So we got some pretty action-packed business right off the bat here. We're going to skip going to the bottom half of this planet by just wall jumping onto the top of the structure like that. That's something you'll see a lot. And I'm going to stand still after that Luma's done talking to me. That causes that launch star cutscene to end about half a second earlier or so. So yeah, the spin is going to be heavily abused throughout this run to do what you saw there, which is basically to just clear jump heights like that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do. I'm going to use another wall jump scale here. Alright, here's a pretty cool strat. So that trick's called Luma Bounce. Essentially what I did there was I did a homing ground pound off of that Luma and got backwards momentum, which is superior to forwards momentum. And that allows me to get to the gravity field of that planet where the launch star would normally take you. And that saves approximately 1 second, and if you fail it, you die. But it's early on and it's not terribly difficult, so it's worth showing off. And again, backwards momentum is superior to forwards momentum, so you'll see me use that quite a bit in this run, such as right here. And now we're coming up on the first fight of the run, which is Pee-wee Piranha. So, you're supposed to spin at Pee-wee's shell 2 or 3 times in order to break it, but you can just shatter the entire shell with 1 ground pound, and that's what I'm going to do here. And I saved up some star bits there so I could shoot Pee-wee as he's about to run away so that he slows down a little bit. I don't have to do that for this phase because he runs away a lot slower on this phase. So that hit's pretty simple. So I should probably talk about what any percent in this game entails. So, in order to actually beat this game, there's no like major sequence breaking you can do or anything. So what you have to do is you have to go through each of the first six worlds. You have to beat each of the castle levels there, and so you need to get 70 stars to unlock Bowser's Galaxy Generator, and then from there, you have to collect the Grand Star there to actually beat the game. So this is, in essence, a 71-star run. And we'll have some decision over what stars to get later in the run. We'll actually have a decent amount of it. So I'm just going to be skimming through this text, because this is just some short plot exposition. So that fat purple idiot that's on my screen right now, his name is Lubba, and he has a pretty cool personality, but he's really, really annoying in speedruns because he stops you after literally every star. And we're just going to call him Purple Idiot because that's what he is, and also for reasons I will explain at the end of the run. By the way, when it says that's right and yes, it doesn't matter which one you select. So, this is the hub world, which the Purple Idiot somehow used that 1 star to create. And this is Starship Mario, so there is a bunch of like unlockable interactive stuff you get here throughout the game, but for speedrunning, none of that matters. So my goal anytime I'm on here is to get to that yellow button to take me to the world map. And right there I held down after that text box cleared because that made Mario face the camera. That allows me to backflip straight to the button, because that's typically what I'm going to do if Mario's facing the camera, otherwise I'll just turn him around. Now, there will be some instances where the Purple Idiot will bring me to other areas of the starship, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So, one bit of tech that I'm going to be using almost every time I select a star, you're going to see it right here. So, whenever there's a gray star on the Star Select menu that I want to select, which is basically a star that hasn't been cleared yet, what I'm going to do to select it is point my Wii Remote off screen and then just mash A, and I'll select it automatically like that. There will be some times where I do have to manually point the Wii Remote at the screen, but those are few and far in between. So at the start of this level here, I have to do some pretty tight movement because I want to reach this first chain chomp on a very specific cycle. This should be good. Alright, I got it. That's a little tight to make. Your movement in this movement might seem rather simplistic, but it's actually very hard to optimize like most of the Mario games. Shoutouts to OddMe who found a way to skip that text box. That's pretty much task only. This planet, I want to have some pretty good movement because again, the elevators in here are on cycles, and I don't really want to make any movement mistakes if I want to get the fastest cycle. That is not what I wanted to do. Alright, it doesn't really matter that I grab that 1-up. When you grab your first 1-up, that text box will pop up, but it's basically guaranteed that I'll grab another 1-up throughout the run anyway, so it doesn't matter that I grabbed it there. Yeah, that was definitely not played optimally. That planet is really hard to do, though. It's easy for mistakes to snowball there, because I basically just have to improvise. So here we just have some flip switches, and here we're going to have the first instance of Cosmic Clones. So these guys copy your inputs frame perfectly, and they're not so bad here, but they'll make backtracking really hard later. So this last planet's pretty straightforward, so I'll explain another piece of tech that I've already been using. So you probably notice every time I land from a launch star that the camera sort of twitches like that, and that is what's known as a landing cancel. So when you land from a launch star, there's normally a small, like, 1-second animation that takes place, but you can cancel that on most planets by going into first-person mode and then exiting it as soon as possible. And you can start moving right away. It saves about 1 second each time you do it, but it will add up over the course of a 3-hour run. And there is actually a second variant of landing cancel that you'll see me go for at the start of about half of the stars in this run. So some instances you can't go into first-person mode on a planet, so there's actually a trick where you can do a frame-perfect jump on a specific frame that you land, and you can jump out of the landing cancel, but that's frame-perfect in 60 FPS, so the likelihood that I get that is, I'm probably going to get it at most, like, maybe 5 times out of the, like, 45 or so stars I'm going to go for it on. Because you don't have to do it on every star. So now we're going into Yoshi Star Galaxy, and if you are familiar with glitches in Super Mario Galaxy 2, you probably know that Yoshi is the most broken part of this entire game. And why, I will explain that in a minute. But basically, with Yoshi, there is a really, really broken glitch you can do called infinite fluttering that really opens up the speedrun. That's a jump cancel, by the way. That's what I'm mashing A for at the start of the level. So I'll explain infinite fluttering in a little bit, but for now there's a really difficult skip I'm going to be going for involving it. It saves about 20 seconds and loses 45 if you die. So hopefully I get this first try. So I am going to need to focus here for a little bit. Yeah, here's infinite fluttering. Alright, I got it first try. Very nice. So the way infinite fluttering works, normally you can't do consecutive flutters in midair like that because there's a cooldown in between every flutter while you're on Yoshi. But Nintendo made the smart decision to allow you to crouch in midair, and this comes with the unintended side effect that it resets both the cooldown timer and the flutter itself. So it cancels both of those, and as you can see, you can just immediately begin fluttering again. And so you can use it to gain both height and distance, and do a ton of unintended sequence breaks. You can also use it to just access areas you're not normally supposed to access. When you're using infinite fluttering to gain momentum, like I was for that skip there, the best angles to hold are usually sideways while slightly moving in the direction of Yoshi's back, but after you're in the air for about 10 seconds, Yoshi will lose almost all of that speed and be reduced to a very slow crawl, which is why I actually dismounted at the end of that flutter. Because when you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you maintain all the momentum you had going into the dismount. And so I use that to gain just a little bit of extra distance. And I'll be utilizing infinite fluttering pretty much every single time I get on Yoshi. And there's a lot more nuances to infinite fluttering than what I just described, and I'll probably get into a lot more of them later in the run when they become relevant. So Yoshi Star 2 has a really cool infinite flutter skip. So in Yoshi Star 1, I used infinite fluttering to skip a grand total of 1 planet. In this star, I'm basically going to be skipping the entire level the moment I get on Yoshi. This flutter, I'd say, is less tricky to learn than the first one, but there is an awkward camera change midway through that I have to accommodate for. This is a pretty cool looking flutter, though. Alright, got it. That infinite flutter saves somewhere in the order of like a minute. It saves a lot of time. So here is Giga Like Heat 2. This is the first real instance where the pointer is going to come into play, so hopefully my sensor bar doesn't screw up on me here. You basically just have to pick up those spinies and throw them back at Giga Like Heat 2. I'm going to wait for him to do this attack so I can go over here and grab this checkpoint for marathon safety. And I'm going to try a funny glitch here. There. If you uncrouch and spin on the same frame like that, you get that weird sliding state. It's completely useless. Alright, so here I'm going to do a thing. Alright, I did the thing. So I hit both of those spinies once with Yoshi's tongue, then got the first one in Yoshi's mouth, and then threw it at Giga Like Heat 2, and then grabbed the second one before the third one made contact. I messed that up. So what I was able to manipulate the spinies so that I had that second one in Yoshi's mouth for the third phase, but I shot it a little bit early. So it unfortunately didn't get the hit to go through on Giga Like Heat 2, but I backed it up pretty well, so that's all that really matters. It doesn't lose too much time. But now we can move on to sort of the main bulk of the game. Your path throughout the beginning of the game is pretty linear because you don't have a whole lot of options for stars you can do, but it starts to open up a lot more as we go through the game. So coming up next, we're going to Spin Dig Galaxy, where we're going to be introduced to the first of Mario's real power-ups, which in this case is going to be the Spin Drill. So the spin drill is new to this game. It basically allows you to dig through planets that have dirt in them, and you can pop up on the other side. And obviously this galaxy is centered around it, but Nintendo kind of did not keep in mind that you can jump when designing a lot of these levels. And so I'm able to skip the spin drill on a lot of these planets by simply just jumping to where I need to go, and it's kind of hilarious how that works out. So like here, instead of going out of my way to get the drill and drilling to this platform here, I'm just going to triple jump up to it. And on this next planet, I'm going to utilize another homing ground pound to gain momentum. So a homing ground pound, it's the thing I did for that Luma bounce trick at the start of the run. It's basically a spin followed immediately by a ground pound like that, and it will home in onto the nearest item, enemy, or NPC. And by using it off that spin drill there, I was able to get a little bit of momentum. So I have to go out of my way here to get these Comet Metal. And then here's a little bit of a sequence break. I'm going to jump backwards into this corner, and that kind of clips me inside of it, and that just saves a couple seconds of walking. So this next planet is relatively simple. So you've probably been noticing that I haven't really been collecting star bits, and I've been trying to avoid coins whenever possible. So whenever you finish a level in this game, or when you collect a star, if you have star bits or coins in your inventory, there's short little 1-second text boxes that will count each of them down, and I want to minimize the amount of time I get those. So I'm not going to be really collecting any star bits in the run unless I have to, such as for right here. Who needs to talk to Captain Toad? I can just shoot him in the face. Yeah, basically, I spit out star bits whenever I get them so that I can minimize those text boxes. So now here is Dig-a-Leg. This boss is the first major instance of RNG in the run, except it's not too much of a difference if you get good RNG versus bad RNG. So I'm going to be pressing up against him for the second and third phases, because I want him to actually jump on top of me. It's basically a 50-50 chance. Okay, I didn't get it, but there's a pretty easy way to back it up. Let me just stand still. So if he jumps on top of me, then he'll jump to the other side of the battlefield, and then he'll immediately become vulnerable, which can save a little bit of time over what I just got. So hopefully I can at least show it off once here. Ah, I got bad RNG. Okay, so I kept that one yellow Digga alive, because then he only spawned one more. That's something else that makes optimizing that fight very hard. And my Wii Remote stopped vibrating for some reason. That's... Okay. So, my Wii Remote stopped vibrating and I wasn't sure what happened. But it still works, so we're good. So this is the first of many instances where the purple idiot is going to bring us to the bottom of the starship, because there's some kind of NPC that he apparently feels the need to introduce us to. And when we're down here, we don't really care for any of that, so I'm basically just going to go back to the button as soon as possible. And it may sound like I'm hitting on him here, but he just talks to you way too much about stuff you don't need to know about. And so that's why a lot of Galaxy runners pick on him. So next up, we're going to go to Right Side Down, which is kind of the first side galaxy that only has 2 stars instead of 3. So this galaxy is where you kind of get to play with the idea of changing gravity fields. So the gravity here can either be on the floor or the ceiling. And as you can see, there's arrows that dictate which way it is. And what makes this level pretty cool is that there's a lot of skips in this level that are simply due to convenient level design, and objects placed in really well-made places. So to start off here, we have this really cool backflip that I can use to get all the way down to the flower here. So I'm supposed to hit a lever here to flip the direction of gravity, but there's a conveniently placed item block right here, which I can just use to get all the way down there instead. Here comes the second slope boost of the run. Got it. And now I'm going to skip another gravity lever here, after I bounce off that Goomba, by just using these elevators, which are, again, conveniently placed right next to where I need to go. So coming up, we're going to have the Fire Flower, and I'm going to be going for some pretty difficult box skips here. It's very easy to die when doing these. Alright, that's the harder of the two. So basically just skip breaking all the boxes by breaking one and then long jumping under the rest. That's really, really risky to go for because it doesn't take much time, and if you get crushed in this game, regardless of how much health you have, it's a one-hit KO. So you really want to avoid that. And here I just skip the rest of the level by just jumping on the side there. For the record, you are actually supposed to be able to go up there, and we know that because there's one-ups in the four corners. If I said hitting on Loba, I meant hating. That was a really good right side down overall. But now I'm actually going to be going back into the galaxy to get its hidden star, or secret star, as we so frequently call them. And for this star, I do need to manually point at the screen in order to select it. But thankfully, I can skip the level intro cutscenes here because I've already seen them, so I can just mash A through them. So I'm going to do that same backflip here. I'm going to go for a bit of a momentum jump here, where I hold neutral after spinning off of this flower, and jump as soon as I land. Alright. I messed it up, but I didn't lose time to it, so. So if you're familiar with the trash blowing up minigames from Galaxy 1, this is a similar concept where I have to burn all these boxes in a time period. This is pretty hard to do casually, but when you're trying to speedrun it, it's also difficult to do it optimally, especially this one, because there's a lot of awkward angles and positions you need to throw it at. Alright, 12 is really good. The best you can get on that minigame is barely a 14, so 12 is actually really good. That's around average for me. And that's it for right side down. So up next, we're going to go to Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, and this introduces another power-up that's sort of a fan favorite of this game. It's the Cloud Flower. Oh, first, Purple Idiot's going to introduce this guy to us. He's important. Keep him in mind. He'll be relevant in about 15 minutes or so. So the thing with the Cloud Flower in this game is that it has its own set of broken mechanics that can make for some pretty neat exploits every time I get to use it. So for this first star, I'm actually going to do the secret star first. I'm going to be collecting 100 coins to feed a Hungry Luma. This is actually the first Hungry Luma in the game, and it requires the most coins, funnily enough. But there's two really easy areas to get a ton of coins in, so the routing for this works out really nicely. Funny little trick coming up here. I'm going to try long jumping into this Cloud Flower, and that causes Mario to turn around and face the camera, and I get some backwards momentum to the pipe there. So I have to be really quick on my feet here, because if I let these timers run out for these coins, then I have to abandon this mission. And each of those three clouds that are following me represents a platform I can create by spinning, which allows me to cross distances I can't cross otherwise. Some intended, some unintended. So I'll explain a bunch of the cloud tech in a little bit, but for now I just need to get the rest of the coins up on this cloud here. I have to be careful again to not miss any of these. Okay, we're good. So now I'm going to feed them all to this Hungry Luma, and he's going to apparently burst with snacky happiness and just transform into an entire planet, because Nintendo logic. So this tower climb you're about to see from me here involves a lot of very specific cloud tech, and I'm just going to kind of let the movement speak for itself, and then I'll explain a lot of the cloud tech after I get the star. So enjoy this movement here. Alright, that was pretty good. So, the big cloud tech is cloud canceling. So whenever I make a cloud, I crouch as soon as I make the cloud, and that cancels the cloud making animation and allows me to move a lot more quickly. But another benefit that this has is that it allows me to utilize the upwards bounce of a cloud. Whenever you're on a moving platform in this game, the movement, if you jump, the moving platform will actually have its momentum applied to your jump. So if it's moving upwards, your jump will go a lot higher. And so that allowed some of my jumps to gain a lot more height than they normally would when I was climbing that tower. So now we're going to do Fluffy Bluff 1, and there's a really big skip in this level. This is also going to be one of the few levels where I actually won't be collecting the Comet Medal because it's just too far out of the way, and the skip saves so much time. So I'm going to use a triple jump here to get up onto this tree with only one cloud. You're not supposed to go up here for this mission, by the way. And there's absolutely no death zone here, because why would there be? When you long jump from the center of a cloud as a Cloud Mario, and you're over an abyss, you can gain a lot of horizontal speed, which really helps for making that skip possible. And now here I'm going to be doing some cloud boosting. So cloud boosted long jumps basically just takes advantage of that upwards cloud bounce that I talked about earlier, where I make a cloud while I'm grounded, and then I transition into a long jump, and the long jump has slightly more distance and height because of that bounce. Yeah, that skip saves are almost a minute, I'm pretty sure. It's a really big time save, and it's not terribly hard. So this will be the first of a few instances where the Purple Idiot is actually going to bring us down to this very important engine room. Certain stars where you use certain power-ups are tied to bringing you down here, where the Purple Idiot just kind of introduces them to himself. And you can't even use the power-ups, you can just be in here and just stare at them, I guess. And we're just going to yeet on out of here because there's literally no reason for this room to exist. This movement back to the button can be pretty awkward. So each of the 6 worlds in this run has a boss level at the end where we get a Grand Star that allows us to go from world to world. And they alternate between Bowser Jr. and Bowser levels, and they are usually very difficult. And this stage is no exception. So, the stage here is really difficult, and so is the boss. This is kind of one of the most notorious levels in the game for speedrunners. Gobblegut is a very difficult boss, but I'll explain why later. But for now, I need to make a very tight cycle with this swamp here, and the movement here is really tricky. It's really easy to die. We should be good. So I'm going to get up on top of this castle here, and the gravity field of the boss planet is insanely huge for whatever reason, so we can just kind of do this. And what I just did there is a frame-perfect ground pound where you spin and press Z on the same frame. That allows you to cancel the spin and do a regular ground pound out of a long jump, which isn't normally possible. So the premise of Gobblegut here is you're supposed to let him bury his face into the ground, and then you attack each of the bellyache bulges as he passes by, but you can actually attack him while he's in the air. And with this strat I want to do, you basically have to have everything go perfectly, or else you're going to lose a tremendous amount of time. So here I'm going to hit bulges 5, 6, and 1 in order. Right from this first long jump, it's hard. Alright, that was a good first phase. So now in the second phase, I'm going to run down and in a straight line, because that'll allow Gobblegut to follow me and get closer and closer to the planet. And then I'm going to turn around at a specific point right here, manipulate him to not immediately follow me, and then just get these last 3 bulges back to back to back. And that's a perfect Gobblegut. That fight is way harder than I just made it look. It takes so much practice to get it down, and in any percent, you actually have to do that fight twice. So you'll get to see him again in about an hour and a half. So now the collection of this Grand Star will mark the end of the World 1 segment. That was pretty good, not gonna lie. Now, unfortunately, because the Galaxy games have so much downtime, we do have to spend a lot of time waiting in between each of these worlds here. We have this cutscene where the next world is opened up. Yeah, in case you haven't noticed, part of the reason why this run is so long is just simply because of the downtime. There's usually anywhere between like 45 seconds to a minute between stars, on average. which is kind of a deterrent for a lot of runners, because it makes the run longer than it needs to be, but it can be nice to have downtime in a speedrun like this, especially when the levels themselves have a lot of high-stress moments. It's just more reasons for the Purple Idiot to waste time for us. So the World 2 segment in this run is actually the shortest segment in this run. We're only in here for a little over 20 minutes, optimally, and we only get 7 stars in this segment, including the Grand Star. But there's some pretty interesting stars here. So coming up first, we have Puzzle Plane Galaxy, which I'm sure many of you know for its music. This level is mostly just movement intensive. There's a couple small skips I'll point out when we get to them. But one bit of tech that I'll talk about during this level. But for the most part, this level is pretty straightforward. And it's just all about, puzzles and whatnot. So I'll let you enjoy the music for a little bit, and then I'll kind of get to some explaining. So on this next planet here, I'm going to skip going to the bottom half of the planet by just backflipping to this launch star. Now would be a good time to talk about spin heights. So when I'm doing most spins, like this one, I'm actually holding A, because that causes you to get slightly more height out of your jump. In addition, if you're playing as Mario, you actually want to be spinning with the Wii remote, because you gain more height than with the nunchuck. And it's reversed with Luigi, and of course they never explain this anywhere. That was... Okay. I was supposed to do a triple jump to skip that, but I backed that up. Interestingly. This section's really scary, because it's easy for it to get hit by one of these buzzsaws and just get knocked off the edge. Alright, we're good. And in this game, you have to hit physical checkpoint flags, otherwise, if you die, you'll get sent back a huge distance. So this last planet is really, really weird because of the way the gravity works. Sometimes when you ground pound these puzzle pieces, you'll actually hit them more than once in a single stomp. We have no idea why this happens, and it didn't happen there, but it's kind of rare that it happens for me, but it can save a little bit of time. Now it's still relatively clean. And now I just have to fight this mini-boss from Galaxy 1, which is incredibly difficult. Also, we're killing a family because Mario has no regard for animal life. Hence why he dumps Yoshi in pits all the time. By the way, in case you're worried, every time I dump Yoshi in a pit, he doesn't actually die. He just transforms into an egg at the death barrier and then respawns somewhere else. So I am not actually killing Yoshi whenever I jump him into pits. But we can pretend and say that I am, because, it's fun to some people. Yoshis are, in fact, tools to be used and discarded. And speaking of Yoshi, we're going to be using him a lot in the next level, after we get interrupted again by the Purple Idiot. Although to be fair, this is actually a pretty important part of the speedrun, the Grand World Map. So whenever I need to go from an individual world to another world, instead of having to backtrack all the way through every single world, I can just use the Grand World Map. So let's say I'm in like World 5 and I need to get to World 1, I can just open up the Grand World Map and go straight from World 5 to World 1. I'm not going to be world jumping until midway through World 3, but it will be used several times because I will need to do some backtracking sessions in this run. So in Hightail Falls, we're introduced to the Dash Pepper, which whenever Yoshi eats it, he runs really, really fast because his tongue is on fire. And also, he can climb up vertical walls because yes. I'm also going to be collecting Starbits in this level because I can't really spit them out while on Yoshi. And since there are a lot of Starbits in this level, I can't really avoid them. So I might as well just collect them while I'm here. So here we go with the Dash Pepper. So now we're zooming. And this effect actually does persist between launch stars, unlike most power-ups, so I'm going to try to keep this effect going for as long as possible. So I'm going to be taking this left path here, which is a lot riskier, but there's an extra Dash Pepper here that I can use, just to kind of prolong its effects. And I'm going to grab this next Dash Pepper a little bit late, again, for the same reason. And now coming up is a particularly interesting flutter strat. So I'm going to flutter off this platform as it's lowering while I still have Dash Pepper momentum. and that will allow me to maintain that momentum while infinite fluttering in a somewhat forwards direction. It allows me to just skip all the way over here. This common metal snag is a little bit tight, so I'm gonna spin to make it a little bit easier, even though that's suboptimal. And don't blink. Or do blink, because I messed that up. There we go. So I said earlier that whenever you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you maintain all of your momentum. So that's that logic applied to dismounting off of Dash Yoshi while he's traveling up a really steep slope, which gives you a lot of height and distance, and you basically just go zoom into that last star. It's a pretty fun looking strat. Now we're going to be off to somewhat of a calmer level. We're going to be going to Cosmico Galaxy. And this level might seem particularly uninteresting for speedruns, but there is actually a lot to keep in mind with this level. Especially for the way we're going to be doing it in any percent. So, I'm actually going to be doing a little bit of multitasking during Cosmico 1, because while I'm getting to where I need to get to, I'm also going to be collecting 15 coins to feed the Hungry Luma in this level. So to start here, I'm going to take a quick little detour to this Koopa Shell and to get these star bits. Because these worm enemies, if you kill them after shooting star bits at them, you'll get coins, otherwise you'll get star bits, and I want to do that twice in this route. So if you're familiar with Galaxy 1 speedruns, you probably know that in that game you can just kind of spam spins underwater. You can't do that in this game because there's a cooldown between spins, so taking the shell is sort of your next best bet, because it's a bit more optimal than just spamming spins underwater and doing it really slowly. Surface swimming also doesn't exist in this game, but technically it does exist, but it can't really be utilized. Thankfully though, that means you have to do significantly less exercise whenever you're underwater, which is really, really nice. Also with the shell you can do these cool little jumps out of the water like I'm about to showcase here. Nice. So, because the switch to freeze the lake is right next to this Hungry Luma, and there's a lot of coins right next to the switch that freezes the lake, as well as the Kama Medal, it's actually optimal to hit the switch that freezes the lake, then feed this Hungry Luma, but I'm not actually going to be taking its launch star right away. Instead, I'm going to be heading over to those waterfalls. And I'm going to actually be getting Cosmic Code 1, and the launch star will stay when I get to when I re-enter Cosmic Code 1, so I can just get the secret star after that. That is not the direction I wanted to wall jump in. It's never happened to me, but I've seen it happen to some players where sometimes they just can't wall jump up those waterfalls. I don't know why it happens, but again, I've never had it happen, knock on wood. And now it's time for one of the most important parts of the run. So, I mentioned earlier that for the most part, whenever I want to select a star, I'm going to auto-select it by pointing my Wii Remote off screen. This is a situation where I really don't want to do that, because if I do that here, I will auto-select Cosmic Cove 2, and I don't have access to the Hungry Luma in that level. So I would have to sit through the level intro cutscenes, and then wait for Mario to land, and then I'd have to exit out. But as long as I just remember to select Cosmic Cove 1, that will not be a problem. So I will have to, again, manually point my Wii Remote at the screen here to get this. And we just saved like 30 seconds. So again, since I already fed the Hungry Luma and its launch star is going to stay there, I can just make a direct beeline to the Hungry Luma's launch star. And again, this is the cooldown between spins that I was talking about. You can't really swim any faster than that underwater. And I'm also going to be grabbing some star bits just for a cool little trick I'm going to be going for on the Hungry Luma planet itself. Yeah, we're pretty much just going to be waiting here, listening to the soothing music. So if you remember the bunnies from Galaxy 1, this is the only one in this game, and there's a pretty cool strat I can do to speed up catching it a little bit. So hopefully I get this. Should be good. Nice, we got it. So you're supposed to head over to that blue switch and ground pound it to freeze the lake so you can skate to catch the bunny. But if you just shoot it with star bits there, for some reason, it just runs the wrong way, and you can use that to catch it a few seconds faster. It's a pretty cool time save. But it is pointer dependent, so that's why it can be a little bit annoying. So remember that Toad I mentioned was going to be important later? This is where he is important. That is the Bank Toad. And basically what this Toad does is you can deposit star bits into him in one save file, and you can withdraw those star bits in another save file. So this is sort of a New Game Plus sort of thing. And these are the star bits I'm going to be using to unlock all the Hungry Luma galaxies so that I don't actually have to collect any star bits at any levels. And I need roughly that many. And the process for unlocking Hungry Luma galaxies does take quite some time, especially when there are other stars you can do. But most Hungry Luma galaxies offer really, really fast stars, so they are worth going out of the way to get. And the same reason why I'm collecting a lot of Comet medals to unlock Comets, even though some of them are out of the way, because a lot of the Comet stars are really fast. And I'll get more into Comets in World 3 when they actually start appearing. And this first Hungry Luma galaxy is actually kind of a perfect example of stars being worth it to spend some time unlocking. Because this first star I'm going to do, the Secret Star, is, I'm pretty sure, the fastest non-green star in the game. Because there's just a little wall jumping section right at the beginning of this level. And I'm just going to, again, let this star speak for itself, and you can enjoy the movement. Because this is a very cool looking level when executed properly. And Bank Toad is the standard for running the Galaxy games, because why would you ever want to grab star bits? Because that just takes forever. Yeah, that's the level. So that took like 16 seconds in-game time. Oh yeah, by the way, after every star, you probably noticed that little timer in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. That's the in-game time you got for that level, which is really good if you're practicing and trying to get like an IL record or just practicing for consistency. So I wanted to specifically do Honeybloom Secret as star number 15, because the Purple Idiot's going to talk to me here because of this NPC. But now I'm going to be brought up to the Male Toad, because at 15 stars you get this letter. And so this saves a few seconds of travel time, and I'm going to utilize a similar Male Toad warp later in the run. But now we're going to be doing Honeybloom 1, which actually wasn't in the any percent route, but a little over a year ago, it was found that doing this star allowed for a lot of world map optimizations that can save up to about 20 seconds. But this level is very movement intensive, it's all in 2D, and there's a lot of really difficult parts to this level, especially because I'm going to want to avoid using the bee mushroom as much as possible. And the hard part's coming up here, so I'm probably going to be a little bit quiet. If you don't have the bee mushroom or the cloud flower, you can't normally stand on these clouds and flowers, but there's a few frames where you can jump off of them, and I'm going to be using that here to try to skip the bee mushroom in this section. This is one of the hardest sections of the level. Right, that jump's very, very scary, but it saves a lot of time if you can get that. So now I actually have no choice but to use V Mario here, because I need him to get through this section of the level, even though he is very, very slow, as you can see. But I'm going to intentionally take damage off this Choppa here so I can lose it, and I can make it through this section a little bit faster. This section's kind of the last tricky section. Right, that went really well. And the rest of this level is just kind of flying around with the bee mushroom. There isn't really much to say about it. This star replaces Supermassive 1 because you can skip the level intro cutscenes, which kind of negates the time loss you would get from doing this level over Supermassive 1, because it is slower in game time. And also, it skips 2 different world map cutscene events that would normally occur if you got Supermassive 1, along with its Comet Medal. And it also allows me to finish World 4 a Comet Medal short, so I can skip a Comet Spawn cutscene by pairing it with a Grand Star. And again, this level is relatively difficult to do. That was really good, though. That's basically about as good as you can ask for. So yeah, this route is a little bit over a year old, and most of the credit for it goes to JDA7, along with a couple other Galaxy community members like Elias, House You Cantaloupe, and Pods. So now we have enough stars to access the World 2 boss level, which is our first Bowser level of the run. So this is going to be Bowser's Lava Lair. And this level is pretty interesting because there's not really anything in terms of, like, there's only, like, one somewhat major skip, but there's also a lot of really small tricks that you can do throughout this level to save time. And this is a really satisfying level to pull off. So I hope you enjoy it. It is also fairly difficult, though, because it's one of those levels where everything just kind of has to go right, or else you have to do some improvisation. So at the start here, I'm supposed to kill a Magic Koopa so that I can make it to this planet's gravity field with a pole star, but it's close enough to where all I have to do is long jump. Like so. And instead of using the spring here, I can skip it by just side flipping. So I'm going to be grabbing the Life Mushroom here, which gives me an additional 3 units of health, because I'm going to be doing a lot of damage abusing in this level, specifically with lava. And it's very important that I don't go below 4 health for the rest of the level, because there's a skip at the end of this level that requires me to have at least 4 health. So here I'm going to do a somewhat finicky lava boost to skip. Oh. Or not. I was anticipating the first one-up text there, so that was a little bit, that kind of threw me off, but we can still do it. There we go. So this just skips that Hammer Bro fight. So I don't know if my cycles are going to be off now, but just in case I am turning the camera up to get these womps off camera, I'm going to go for I'm going to double jump into the lava here, store triple jump, and use it to get this comet a little bit quicker. Nice. So I jumped off that womp's head as it was rising upwards, which gave me a lot of upwards momentum, and I converted that into backwards momentum to get to that meteor a lot quicker. Now we're coming up on the skip that I needed 4 HP for. So I'm going to skip a couple of snake block auto-scrollers here by just lava boosting, and this is what I needed 4 HP for. So I bounce on that first statue, and then I can regain control when I hit that second statue. That's actually an intended mechanic in this game. So when you bounce on lava and then bounce on the ground, you're actually able to, you actually do a short hop on the ground, and then you can regain control of Mario. But if you do that short hop and then land in the lava again, the game will remember that you did that short hop, and it will allow you to immediately gain control the next time you land on the ground. So that's what I used there to get across those Bowser statues. The spacing for that has to be just right in order for it to work. But now that we're done with the level, it's time for the Bowser fight. The Bowser fights in this game are all pretty much the same thing, aside from a couple of new things getting added with each fight. So basically, Bowser just yells, summons a bunch of meteors, and then he punches, gets his fist stuck in the ground, and then while he's trying to pull it out, you ground pound the meteors into him. And you have to do this a total of 4 times. And there's not much you can do in terms of optimization, except I am going to try to have Bowser punch as close to the meteors as possible, and then ground pound the meteor at an angle that it travels the least amount of distance from the ground pound spot to Bowser. And it's not common that it happens in this fight, but every missed hit is about 20 seconds lost, so you really want to avoid that. It's a lot more scary on the later fights. So now we're in the second phase of the fight where before Bowser punches, he spews fire for a little bit. It's super easy to dodge, but I want to actually pay attention to where this ends, because that's where he's actually going to start aiming his next punch. And by knowing that, I can manipulate him into punching right away. Although it does make setting Bowser up a bit trickier, because sometimes his fist can be really far away from the meteors, and so you might have to like move him a little bit closer, or else ground pounding is going to be pretty difficult. So it's really case dependent. These fights never go the same way twice in a row. Okay, so something to keep in mind is Bowser can in fact punch out the meteors, which could have happened there if he was just a little bit closer. But fortunately in that fight you have a decent amount of time to head to another meteor and ground pound it into Bowser. It gets a lot tighter on the later fights. Yeah, that fight was relatively clean. Now all that's left to do in World 2 is to long jump to this Grand Star after it takes a little more than forever to make its way to its final location. And that's it for World 2. For now. We will be coming back here to do some cleanup, but in terms of like the actual World 2 segment, we're done. So now I would say we're really getting into the sort of the hard part of this run, because Worlds 1 and 2 they are filled with some pretty difficult strats, but that's early game. You can reset if you want. Once you get to World 3, the risks become a lot higher because there's usually a lot more difficult strats and mistakes are a lot more costly. In addition, this is when comets start appearing, so that is something I will have to keep in mind. Yeah, we just gotta sit through this cutscene again, because downtime is so much fun. So World 3 starts off with a bit of a fork in the road, and you actually can choose between two different galaxies as to where to go first. And so I'm actually going to be taking the bottom path first. So Cloudy Core, if you enjoyed that, if you missed a Cloud Mario, we'll get to use him for this pretty much this entire level. There's a lot more cloud boosting action in this level, and it should be pretty joyful to watch. There's a couple of low-hanging fruit stuff here, but the big thing is at the end of this level, there are some crushers with a Comet Medal inside of them, and I want to try to make it through the crushers and grab the Comet Medal before they close all the way, and you'll see that at the end of this level. And another thing you're going to be seeing me do in this level is what I like to call 4 cloud strats. So right here, I'm going to cloud boost into this cloud flower, and that replenishes my cloud stock, so I can use the remaining 3 clouds to make it over that gap. So I essentially use 4 clouds for a single maneuver. Here I have to be facing this drum so I can ledge grab onto it, and I can use clouds here to skip this launch star. And make it all the way up here. Alright, that Octumba can sometimes snipe you, and I'm very thankful that it did not try to snipe me. So now we're going into the 2D section here, and again, I'm just going to be using a lot of cloud tech to climb this section really quickly. There's going to be another usage of 4 cloud strats. I'm going to use it to kind of scale this wall here. And we're coming up on the 1 cycle here. I have a pretty good setup for this, but it can still be really tricky, so hopefully I can get this. Alright, we got it. Again, if you get crushed by those crushers when attempting that, you're just dead, and you go all the way back to the start of the 2D section. Well, that was a pretty clean level overall. So up next, we're going to be going to Freezy Flake and doing the secret star there. This is where I get to have a little bit of fun with you guys in the chat, because I know I haven't been talking to you guys that much. So Freezy Flake's secret is a battle with that chimp you saw in Fluffy Bluff 1, and where he challenges you to a minigame where you have to beat his high score. Now, the minigame duration timer is fixed, and there's no way to stop the timer early, and it doesn't lose time to go for as high of a score as you can get. So, if you want to guess what score I'm going to get, you have to guess anywhere between 500 and 900 points, and you can only guess in multiples of 10. So stuff like 560, 630, and 710. And my rules are, whoever gets it exactly right or is closest, and it doesn't matter if you overshot it or undershot it, whoever's closest wins. But of course I actually have to make it there first. Nice, that early fireball is really difficult to make. So the entrance to the minigame is in this tree here. You have to burn it with the fire flower. And for the most part, this minigame isn't terribly difficult. You just gotta skate. First thing I'm going to talk about is just to show it off, I'm going to be skating backwards. If you just press Z while you're skating, you can just start skating backwards. And it doesn't have any influence on the controls, but it looks cool. So, the way the patterns here work is that the patterns themselves are the same every time, but they can be rotated one of 3 different ways. But once you have one rotation, it's set for the pattern is set for the rest of the minigame, so it's really easy to memorize the patterns. And it eventually just becomes muscle memory once you've done this enough times. So yeah, I've already made the high score, but just for fun, I'm gonna see how high I can get. My record in this is like somewhere in the lower 900s, I'm pretty sure. Alright, so whoever either guessed 850 or was closest to 850 would have won. And if you missed your chance there and you didn't get it on that try, don't worry, there'll be another opportunity later on. So, before we move on, there's one more star I want to collect in Freezy Flake. And that's going to be Freezy Flake 1. Technically, Freezy Flake 2 could be done fast enough to do it any percent, but no. That's not going to happen for a while. So, the main thing with Freezy Flake 1 here is that I'm going to be on some pretty tight timers for most of this level. Mainly due to the Fire Flower. That's not going to work, I don't think. Yeah. You need a pretty precise angle for that early fireball throw. So that Fire Flower, I want to try to make this last all the way until I get to the Comet Medal in this next section, and I have maybe a second or two of leeway. The movement isn't too difficult, but it still can be pretty tight, and I almost always cut it really close. But this should be good. There we go. So if you miss that, you lose like 20 seconds, because then you have to grab this Fire Flower, blow out that wall to get the Comet Medal, and then wait for the next one to spawn, because there just isn't enough time to do that and blow up this Bowser statue with the same Fire Flower. And I can skip pushing the snowballs around by just lava boosting straight to the Bowser statue like so. And that's that level. Pretty straightforward. So because I just got my 3rd star from World 3, we're going to get a visit from a somewhat special person. You probably know who he is. But unfortunately, we're not going to see too much of him in this run. Until the perfect run, since that incentive was met. Thank you to everybody who donated. So say hi to Luigi. And now say goodbye to Luigi, because we're going to ditch him. So from this point onward, Luigi will start appearing at the start of various levels, and I can talk to him to switch to him, to playing as him for just that one level, but I'm never going to do that in this run, because it takes too much time to talk to him beforehand. Even though he is faster, he does run faster and jump higher than Mario, he both talks to you beforehand and he talks to you after you've completed the level, so for any percent, he loses too much time to be worth switching to. You can only switch between them freely in post-game, but we're not going to do post-game in this run. So at the start of Honey Halls 1 here, I'm going to turn the camera a few times, because when moving platforms and objects aren't on camera, they don't move. And so I'm basically manipulating some platform cycles to try to make a platform cycle I couldn't otherwise make. It only saves a couple seconds at best, and it's kind of tight. So doing that just makes it a little bit easier, but even then it's still pretty tight, and it's this cycle right here. And this does come at the cost of a checkpoint, so I have to be pretty careful. Now, those two platforms are based on cycles, but this and the next platform actually start moving once you enter a certain radius. So they're not influenced by cycles, and again, because you can long jump in this game, you can skip waiting on most of them. And now this Comet Medal platform, I believe, if I remember correctly, it stops moving as soon as you enter the launch star, so only your movement up until then matters. Right, these Octoboos are really scary. They can knock you off super easily. And we get Yoshi in this last section, so take a guess as to what's about to happen. This Bulberry, by the way, it just illuminates floors underneath you that otherwise don't exist, but we don't really need it. So something very important just happened, and that's that I got my 4th star from World 3, which means that from this point onwards, comets are going to start appearing in galaxies where I have collected the comet medal and gotten a certain number of, and I have to have a certain number of comet medals total. So for example, this comet's going to spawn now because I just got that comet medal, and it only requires 1 comet medal. And I'll be getting comets in a little bit, but for now I'm just going to be kind of letting them build up. And I'll be making a couple different backtracking sessions for each of them. So Honey Halls 2, if you've never really watched Super Mario Galaxy speedruns, this is probably what you would imagine the speedruns to be consisting of. This is basically Long Jump Simulator 2010, as I like to call it, because you're basically just long jumping from beginning to end, and with a couple spins here and there. Optimizing your long jumps in this game is actually a lot more technical than you might think, because if you're initiating a long jump from a run, you actually want to press Z and A at roughly the same time, so that Mario doesn't crouch before he jumps, because otherwise when you try to run again, he'll sort of like stop for a few frames before running again, and that's suboptimal. So it doesn't really save too much time individually, but again, over the course of the run, paying attention to it can save a few frames here and there, which can add up if you are paying attention to it. And also when you're chaining long jumps like this, first of all, you can actually alter your angle slightly between long jumps, but I'm not really going to be doing that too much. And you can also, there's also a small frame window where you have to press A and optimally chain long jumps together. But yeah, this level is, for the most part, pretty straightforward. It's just got a lot of tight corner jumps. So yeah, that's a bunch of long jumps. Not really much to say. So again, it's going to be a while before I start getting comments. I just need to get a couple more stars. But I'm basically just letting them build up. And then again, I'm making a couple cleanup sessions for them. So next, we're going to go to our next Hungry Luma galaxy, which is going to be Beat Block. And this Hungry Luma is really weird, because for some reason, the last star bit that you feed to this Hungry Luma almost always shoots out late. Which is kind of advantageous, because since you can move while you're feeding the Hungry Luma, I can set up a backflip to the helm, and that last star bit shooting late makes it a little bit easier to time the backflip. So Beat Block has a pretty cool gimmick where there are yellow and green blocks that will switch every 8 beats of the song. So this level is very cycle-based, and also kind of a bunch of long jumps. But I actually have to be paying attention to my long jumps here and make sure I'm doing them optimally. Now, I am going to be playing it a little bit slow at the start of this section, just because there's going to be some green blocks that I want to avoid getting caught on if I'm too fast. So I'm going to intentionally avoid the jump cancel here, and I'm just going to kind of play it a little bit slow. Alright, so now I can be fast, because that won't matter for my cycles for the rest of this level. If I do get thrown off, though, I'm basically going to have to improvise, which is not always fun to do in Beat Block. But so far, we're so good. I know I just have some silver stars to collect. This section can be a little bit scary, especially this last long jump, because the angle you want to hold there is not in the notches of your controller. And this turnaround to get to the star can be a bit awkward, because you have momentum in the opposite direction. That was an optimal Beat Block one. I made the optimal cycle. So the last star I'm going to get before I begin my Comet session is going to be Tall Trunk 1. And this is a pretty overlooked level, I think, because there's a lot of really cool tricks you can do in this level. But it's a really satisfying level to pull everything off in, but it's also a very challenging level to get consistent at. So hopefully everything goes smoothly. This is another level that can snowball if mistakes start happening. So on this first planet, you're supposed to use Yoshi and the blimp fruit to climb this tree, but that's slow, and so is infinite fluttering upwards with Yoshi. And Mario just so happens to be a pretty skilled acrobat, so instead of using Yoshi, we're just going to scale this tree using his various jumps. This saves a few seconds, but it's also kind of difficult, especially that long jump right there. Side flipping is impossible in this game, by the way, so the fact that I got that as cleanly as I did was really good. But now we are going to be using Yoshi, and to a great extent here. This comet metal grab is really awkward because it's straight backwards for an infinite flutter, which means if I mess this up, then I'll have to grab the blimp fruit or flutter forwards, which loses a lot of time. But I barely got that. Now here I'm just going to collect all these star chips in one fall here. This is some really cool movement as well. So I'm ditching Yoshi here because, first of all, it makes it easier to get to this launch star and a little bit faster. And also because I'm able to do this ground pound at the start of this planet here, and Yoshi will be in his egg ready for me to go once I get all the way down here. Now here, infinite floating upwards with Yoshi again actually is really slow, so I have no better alternative here but to just take the blimp fruit. So this last section is kind of boring. Though, I am going to be, so right here, I'm going to shake out of blimp fruit mode using the nunchuck instead of the Wii Remote, so I can keep my pointer on that next blimp fruit without having it spaz out on me. And you might think Yoshi's going to get his time to shine here in the cutscene, but no. I'm a mean person, so we're not going to let that happen. Alright, so now I'm finally going to start getting some comments. So comments are modified versions of levels that usually introduce some sort of new challenge, and there's several different kinds of them. And usually the comment stars are really fast because they're shortened versions of the level. And I already went over the requirements to collect comments, but I'll go over them again. You need the comet medal from that galaxy and a certain number of comet medals total. So if I'm getting a comet medal from a galaxy that either doesn't have a comet or has a comet I'm not going to get, it's to add to the total. And I need 32 comet medals in this run for one of the comets. So that's how many I'm going to be collecting. So Cloudy Quartz Comet is the first time, where we're going to really get to see those cosmic clones from Sky Station 2. And they're going to be here for almost the entire level. But there is a cool trick I can do at the start here. That I'm going to try to do. It doesn't really save or lose time, but if you just barely... Okay, I didn't get it. If you just barely touch the edges of these star chips, you can prevent the cosmic clones from spawning, but I didn't get it. Again, it doesn't really save or lose time to get it, but it's just a cool thing to show off. But now we're getting into this 2D section, which is where the cosmic clones really get annoying. Because if you mess up in one of these wall jumping sections, they will also mess up in the wall jumping section. So it's impossible to get back up because they're all in the way. So as long as I can get through here, we should be good. Fortunately, this is not terribly difficult. So yeah, that level, again, is pretty simplistic. It's pretty easy once you sort of figure out what you're doing, but if you let things get out of hand, it can snowball. That was actually a gold split. Somehow. And now we're finally going to start world jumping, because I don't have quite enough stars to unlock the World 3 boss yet, and I don't really want to get any other stars in World 3 because they're slow. So we're actually going to go back to Worlds 2 and 1 and get some stars that have just spawned. And again, I'm going to use my handy-dandy brand world map just to go straight from the beginning of World 3 to the beginning of World 2 without having to do any annoying backtracking. So funnily enough, Cloudy Quartz Comet, which I just got, spawns every Cosmic Clone Comet in the game, including this one. But this comet unlocks every Purple Coin Comet in the game, which is why I'm getting it now. because there's some comets in World 4 that are purple coin comets that I'm going to want for my first visit. This is a very, very mundane star. It looks mundane, but it's a lot harder than it looks. Getting each of these group sets of purple coins as you're running by in one sweep is really difficult. And the cosmic coins don't exactly make it easier. So I'm going to be doing a few bunny hops throughout this level, just because that does speed Mario up a little bit as opposed to just running. Alright, that was pretty solid overall. Had a couple of minor flops there, but overall really good. That's, again, that's a lot harder than I made it look. But now we can get any purple coin comet in the game as long as we meet all the other requirements to unlock them. So now I'm going to head to World 1 and get a couple of comets, as well as a Hungry Luma Galaxy that I didn't have the star bits for earlier. Because I didn't have Bank Toad then. So first we're going to go to Sky Station's Comet, which is the first speedy comet, where you have to complete the level on a time limit, and we're just going to ignore how they spell speedrun, because we know it's incorrect. But this Galaxy 2 adds a twist to some of the speedy comets, where so you have like 20 seconds to complete the level, which is obviously not enough, even though this is a shortened version of Sky Station 1, but I have to collect clocks throughout the level that add 10 seconds to my time. So I'm going to be doing that throughout most of this level. I'm going to go out of my way to collect some clocks whenever I need to. But as you can see here, I skipped like 3 planets in this level, because this is the only other planet I'll go to before Pee-wee Piranha. Alright. So now I gotta refight Pee-wee. If you missed the fight from earlier, basically I have to ground pound Pee-wee's shell once instead of spinning at it 2 or 3 times to shatter the entire thing, and that'll allow me to get some early hits. So there is actually a soft lock that can happen on this fight. If you shoot Pee-wee with star bits right before it transitions into a cutscene, then the cutscene just never starts, and you're unable to interact with Pee-wee in any way. Now, if that happens on this comet, it's not a huge deal, but if it were to happen on Sky Station 1, you have to reset. So, thankfully, it didn't happen to me either of those 2 times. I did play it a little bit safe with my star bits, so that I didn't accidentally have it happen, but you can never be too safe in a marathon. And those were still really clean Pee-wee fights, so it ended up paying off in the end. Up next on the agenda is going to be Yoshi Star's Comet, which, weirdly enough, does not have Yoshi in it at all. This is the first of 4 Romp Comets that we're going to be doing in this run, which are new to Galaxy 2. Romp Comets are basically a kind of comet where you have to kill a bunch of enemies within a time limit. And there's usually some sort of gimmick, like right here, it's the Rainbow Star. The thing with the Rainbow Star is that when you grab it, you're invincible to enemies and kill them by touching them, but you also start building up this P-speed, sort of like in Super Mario Bros. 3, where the longer you stay running on the ground without running into any obstacles, the faster you'll go. And I want to maintain this state for as long as possible, which is easier said than done, because I have to not bump into any walls. Or slow down, for that matter. And in this level, if you kill a Spiny and then it goes off camera, because of what I talked about earlier with objects not updating if they're not on camera, the death counter won't actually update unless a Spiny dies on camera. So if a Spiny dies on camera like one just did there, I have to turn the camera like so to get it to die on camera. And that can be pretty annoying. I am missing a Spiny somewhere. Oh! I forgot about this Spiny. Can I get a that's never happened before? Whatever. That costs minimal time. I figured it out quickly. Again, at least I figured that out quickly, because that was a little interesting. I thought a Spiny died off camera that I didn't know about. So the last star I'm going to get before going to the boss level is going to be this Hungry Luma Galaxy. And the reason why this is this needs to be the last star for this route to work out, because I can have its comet spawn cutscene get skipped by having it overlap with the next star I collect, which is going to be a grand star, which initiates a whole different cutscene. So Flip Swap's gimmick is a little like Beat Block's gimmick, where you have these red and blue platforms that switch every time you spin. So casually you have to, keep track of when you spin so you don't accidentally screw yourself. But the platform's sort of right. It'll be a little easier for me to demonstrate with a webcam on. The platforms sort of like rise up whenever they switch, which means that you can utilize that upwards momentum for super high and super far long jumps. These are pretty risky to go for, and especially with these first couple, it's easy to die to them if you mess them up, but they can save a decent amount of time. So this is a pretty cool looking level if I can get this properly. So yeah, whee! Just kind of flying all over the level. I'm gonna go for another one right here. This is also a pretty difficult one, but we got it, so we're good. The last few aren't as difficult. And as you saw earlier, you can cancel a spin with a long jump or a regular jump, which can make switching the platforms and maintaining fast movement easier. I'm also going to use that right here to get a jump off this platform as it's rising up for like a mini super jump. So yeah, that was a perfectly executed flip swap, pretty much, which is really, really good, especially in a marathon. So hopefully that level was entertaining to watch. But now we're going to be able to move on to the boss level of World 3, which is Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet. And if you thought the infinite flutters I've done so far in this run have been crazy, you're in for a treat. So this is considered one of the hardest sets of infinite flutters to do in Galaxy 2, and it's definitely one of the scariest, both to do and to watch. So this is known as the question block flutter. Even though there's actually 3 different flutters I do here. So the first flutter is as soon as basically this entire level is all one height, and you get Yoshi right at the start, so you can skip a bunch of the auto-scrollers and stuff that you normally have to do. So as soon as I get on Yoshi, I'm going to flutter to an asteroid that has collision, and then flutter from there to a question block in the middle of where the airships normally are, and then I have to get one of a couple precise angles, infinite flutter from the question block, through a comet metal, and then underneath a structure to get to the end platform. You get no checkpoints in this route, so if you die, you lose about a minute. So I hope that this goes well. This first flutter isn't too bad, but the second flutter, it's really easy to have a bad angle and either overshoot or undershoot the question block, which can either lose time or even kill you. But this is looking good. And now for this question block flutter, I'm going to need some time to set up the angle here. So I'm going to be kind of quiet here. This is the hard flutter. Alright, we got it. That's way harder than I just made it, because there's only a couple different angles that'll work for that flutter, due to the way everything's aligned, and you have to go low enough to get underneath the structure, but not too low, or else you die, and then rise up quickly enough to do that dismount. That's a really scary flutter. And I actually got the angle super quickly, so that was really good. But now we're gonna fight Mega Hammer, who's another terrible pointer-based boss. So I'm gonna hop on Yoshi here and then back up for a little bit, because I'm gonna try to set up for an early hit here. Like that. Now, I don't actually want to do that for this second phase, because I want to cancel one of Mega Hammer's attacks. I'm going to wait here. And then fire right about now. So when he's shaking his hammers there, he was getting ready to smash them together, which would have cost time. And so when now I'm at the backside, I'm going to lure 3 bullet bills here, and I'm going to use 2 of them to take out this back weak spot, and I'm going to get 1 in Yoshi's mouth, and then get close enough to Mega Hammer that this bullet bill should hopefully stay in my mouth after the cutscene. And now I can just do a side flip and a full flutter. He's supposed to lower his head here so that you can hit this cockpit, but a side flip and a full flutter is enough to reach it. And the hitbox still exists for some reason. That was a very, very good fearsome plate. That's a mid-game, this level is a mid-game run ender, so I'm really happy it went as well as it did. And that's it for World 3. So overall, I'd say that went pretty well. But we still have 3 worlds worth of content to go through, and we're not even technically, we're almost halfway through this run, but not quite. And it only gets more difficult from here. Because World 4 has a pretty straightforward route to it for the most part, but a lot of the tricks in World 4 are fairly difficult to get good at, and most mistakes in World 4 result in deaths that are extremely costly. It usually takes a lot of practice to get good at some of these strats that I'm about to go for here. But if done right, everything will look amazing, so let's just do everything right. Oh, sorry, I was waving to somebody. Anyways. Ignore that, hopefully. So, you have a bit of a fork in the path here. The game wants you to go to Supermassive, but we don't want to do that level in any percent anymore, because that level's been routed out entirely, thankfully. So we're going to take this convenient fork in the path to go to Sweet Mystery instead, which is just a better galaxy anyways. And if you remember how the last level was a bunch of infinite fluttering, this level's more or less the same, except it's not as scary. You get Yoshi right at the start, and the level's all one height, so you can just do a bunch of infinite flutters to travel the level at faster speed than normal. The IL strat for this level is insane, because if you bounce off of an object during infinite fluttering, it actually resets that 10-second timer I talked about. And so you can essentially complete this entire level in one flutter by bouncing off various objects, but it's insanely difficult. So you're not going to really see me going for any of that. But the strats I'm going to do still look pretty cool. And it's still really fun to do. This first flutter, however, I am going to be doing with a somewhat blind angle, because I'm not going to be turning the camera, so hopefully I get a good angle here. And it's also not in the notches of my controller, so that's fun. I think this is good. Alright, I can make this infinite flutter go all the way over to the comet medal here. That was the goal. And now again, I'm just infinite fluttering to skip over the platforming I'd otherwise have to do. So here I'm supposed to hit a bunch of flip switches to make a launch star appear, but I'm just going to skip doing that by infinite fluttering to the last planet here. This flutter is actually kind of scary, because if you somehow fall during this last infinite flutter, you don't actually die right away. You instead land on this invisible floor, because the death plane is unloaded. And so you have to spend like 20 additional seconds finding a ledge you can fall off of, and it wastes a lot of time. But that was a really well executed level, so we're good. And we're going to be kind of going back and forth between this level and Flipspell Galaxy for a little bit. One thing I haven't explained about comets yet is that whenever you meet all the conditions to unlock a comet, which include the comet medal stuff I talked about earlier, but also you have to have completed all the non-secret stars from that galaxy, then you have to collect another star from another galaxy for it to spawn. So I fulfill all the requirements for Sweet Mystery's comet, except getting a star from another galaxy, which is why I'm going to Flipspell now. And Flipspell, I think you're going to really like this level. Flipspell 1 is full of a lot of really cool skips. There's several different routes for this level, but this is the fastest one, and it's really sick to watch. So I'm gonna backflip onto this wall here to make getting to the comet medal a little bit faster, like so. And we're just gonna do this. Just skip straight to the second planet. And that actually unloads a kill plane here, so I can get on top of this roof, and then backflip to slide off of this roof and get some backwards momentum. So I'm falling with a slight amount of backwards momentum, and once I get close enough to the boss planet here, I can spin, enter his gravity field, and just skip pretty much the entire level. That's a very visually impressive looking skip. And now I get to fight Glamdozer, which is not a particularly hard boss if you know what you're doing. And there's a pretty fast strat for this too. So Glamdozer's entire body is vulnerable, so I can just camp out underneath its chin and wait for it to become vulnerable and then just ground pound right away. And I have visual cues for when to jump and ground pound, so I can get the hits almost as optimal as possible. But yeah, again, very fun level to watch. So now Sweet Mysteries Comet is going to spawn, but I'm also going to want to get Flipspell's Comet in this trip, which means I have to do both Flipspell 1 and 2 now. And then the buffer star I'm going to get is going to be Sweet Mysteries Comet, and that will allow Flipspell's Comet to spawn. Unlike Galaxy 1, where comets operate on cycles, in Galaxy 2, when a comet is unlocked in a galaxy, it stays there until you collect it, which makes routing this game way, way easier. And it also makes routing mistakes not as punishing, because it doesn't completely kill your run if you do a star at the wrong time. It's just an insignificant time loss. So, Flipspell 2 is mostly about the spin drill, except we're not going to be using it for the first half of this level, like Nintendo intended for you to do, because Nintendo really, really did not try when making this level, because you can easily skip the spin drill on both of the first 2 planets, and it's not hard at all. So instead of using the spin drill here, I'm just going to jump around the side, because that's fast. I'm going to use that enemy to make it a little bit easier. And you can wall jump on this structure for no real reason, so sure, we'll use that. And now, this first part of this room is the hardest part, so hopefully I get this. Alright. So this room is sort of half auto-scroller and half cycles, because I do have to wait for the cycles, but I also have to make sure I don't miss any. And for the most part, this is pretty straightforward. Something I should bring up now, because it's going to be relevant for the comet, when you use the spin drill, while you're in the drilling animation, your hitbox is really big for some reason. So you can actually collect a huge group of coins, even if it looks like you're nowhere near them. If you drill, you can collect coins due to your hitbox growing. And that's going to be used a lot in the comet. Grabbing the star here is sometimes weird, because sometimes you can grab it right away, but I don't know why. So again, I have met I've met the requirements for Flipspell's Comet to spawn. Now I just need to get a star from another galaxy. So that's going to be Sweet Mysteries Comet, so we're just kind of going back and forth here. This star is another star that is deceptively difficult. Because it's another purple coin comet. It's not timed, but you need to collect every purple coin, and you have to be on Yoshi basically the entire time. Yoshi walks really, really fast, so you want to maximize the amount of time you're on the ground, but at the same time, this makes it really hard to collect purple coins without slowing down and without missing any. So this is a very hard level to optimize. In addition, every time I jump in this level, I'm going to be double tapping A to do a short flutter, which reduces the amount of time Yoshi's in the air and makes it so that I don't spend as much time doing slow jumps. Fortunately, though, you don't have to do any crazy infinite flutter tricks in this level, unless you fall off and then you have to save yourself, which is always pretty clutch, so hopefully that doesn't happen. This level takes a lot of practice and focus to get down. I'm probably not going to be saying much here because I'm going to want to focus. Here's a platform that's on a cycle. If I'm fast enough... Okay, well, I'm definitely not fast enough now. But if you're fast enough, you can make a fast cycle with this block up ahead, but I definitely am not going to be fast enough now. But it's only like a few seconds lost, and it's hard to make to begin with. That was still a pretty decent level. I only had like a couple movement flops, and I don't think I really missed any purple coins. And if you thought that level was hard, this next level is even worse to get good at. So yeah, this is, again, World 4 is just full of stars that can easily snowball on you. I'm making this look easy. So Flipsville's Comet is another purple coin comet, funnily enough. Except this time it's in that 2D room where all the cycles are. Which means, yeah, cycles are going to be very important here. So I'm going to be going for this route that was found by How to Cantaloupe a little over 2 years ago. That's incredibly tight, especially for the first half, but it can save about 5 seconds or so. And I'm once again going to be utilizing the Spin Drill's hitbox to collect huge amounts of coins while I'm drilling. So hopefully this first half goes well. I'm going to, again, kind of try to focus here. Okay, I already screwed up. Alright, so I've lost a cycle already. Okay, I haven't lost the cycle yet, but... hold on. So I haven't lost the cycle yet, but I am going to lose a little bit of time because I collected a different line of purple coins than I normally do. But I am on the optimal cycle right now. This is a little bit weird. I've never had this happen before. So I want to kill this Fuzzy so he doesn't get in my way during this room. I'm good in terms of cycles now, by the way. The rest of the stage isn't too hard. So I was supposed to collect, this line of purple coins. I was supposed to collect that line of purple coins the first time I entered this room, but because I was slow in the first 2 rooms, I had to sort of make a split-second decision, and so I chose to just grab the other line, so that cost me a little bit of time. But I still didn't miss any cycles, somehow, which is pretty pog. And now I am completely done with Sweet Mystery and Flipsville, so we can say sayonara to those 2 galaxies. And I'm going to go back and forth between 2 other galaxies now. Specifically these 2, Chompworks and Starshine Beach. Chompworks 1 is, unfortunately, filled with a decent number of auto-scrollers. It is somewhat of a long level, but it's worth doing, both for the combat medal and because there's 2 pretty fast stars we can do if we get Chompworks 1. Actually, more than that. So, and there's a lot to take in on this first planet. So this slope, you're not normally able to climb, but for some reason you can climb up it if you're running on the very edge of it. You're just not affected by the slope. I'm gonna hit that lever, head over here to get the comet medal. I have a decent amount of time to wait. I'm gonna shoot Starbits, act as Octumba so I can stun it so that its coin doesn't get in my way when I'm taking the launch star. And I'm gonna long jump into this launch star to prevent a landing stun on the next planet, because that works for some reason. And then this planet is just a few long jumps. This level's very back and forth, it's really weird. This planet has a cool strat that we didn't used to think was possible, but if you just barely touch the left edge of that seesaw, it will lower just enough so that this chomp can make it on. We used to think that the first chomp had to break, and then you could get the second one on there, but it was discovered a few years ago that you could get that first chomp cycle by doing that. And it's not terribly difficult either, you just have to have good timing. Unfortunately, you cannot do the same thing for this first chomp here. This first chomp has to die, unless you're using just 2 players. If you have a second player, they take the role of an Orange Luma, and they have a ton of useful features that aren't really useful to speedruns. The only real useful place is they can stop that chain chomp, and which would give you enough time to lower this platform for it to make it on and skip that chomp cycle. But again, no one really uses 2 players in this game because it doesn't really offer much of a time gain outside of that, and it's difficult to use 2 Wii remotes at once. And this last part, again, is just kind of an auto-scroller, so there's really not much to do here, so I'm just going to kind of goof around, use this button to get some high backflips. I can get a super high one if I time this right. Ah, I was too early. Doesn't matter, though. So that's that level. Pretty long level, but it's worth doing, and it's got a few cool tricks up its sleeve. So, we go from auto-scrollers now. We're going to be revisiting everyone's favorite power-up from Galaxy 1. Press 1 if you liked the spring mushroom in Galaxy 1, and press 2 if you didn't. Fortunately, we don't have to use it a whole lot in the star, because, again, Nintendo's good at making games, so you can skip it on the first 2 planets. You can actually skip it for the entire level, but it's actually faster to use it on the last planet. But that's not as important for top players as something else. So in this level, there are elevators on the last planet that move on a cycle, but those elevators are moving while you're on the first planet. So if I don't have really good movement on this first planet, I could miss out on a platform cycle that saves a little over 5 seconds. Alright, I didn't get the jump cancel, so now I have to have really good movement. Alright, that was pretty good, so I should have a shot at making it. And the cycles don't update while you're on this planet. One thing there, you can't normally do a landing cancel there because you can't normally go into first-person mode on this planet. But if you go into you have 1 frame when you land on a planet like that to enter first-person mode, and you can still do a landing cancel with that. Also, if you spin with the nunchuck, you can spin sooner after a wall jump for some reason, which I was using for those 2 wall jumps. Alright, so here's the last planet with the cycles. So hopefully it's hard to both make the cycle and stay on it. So this is going to be really tight. This should be good. Alright, so that's the first part. Now I have to get the second part. Alright, we're good. That saves about 6 seconds, I think. That's a very, very tight cycle to make. It takes a lot of practice to get good at doing it consistently. Also, nice coin count there. So yeah, Purple Idiot's gonna bother us again. We're just gonna head on out of here because we don't care. And now we get to go to another really interesting level. This one actually pays homage to Super Mario Sunshine, if you've heard of that game, which is Starshine Beach. This is one of the few galaxies that's kind of open world in this game because everything kind of takes place on this one planet. And for the most part, you can kind of do stuff in whatever order you want, especially for this first star, because it's a Silver Star mission. Another thing, Yoshi is in this level, and unlike in Sunshine, he doesn't die when he touches water. So we can use Yoshi for quite a few cool tricks in this level. And for some reason, this planet exists. And there's another frame-perfect ground pound. So I'm gonna long jump on this crab to stun it, and then I'm gonna get on Yoshi, and then eat this crabber, because I'm gonna want to use it. And then infinite flutter up to this glass cage here, where the first Silver Star is. That was kind of a close one. Walk right up to the cage and fire that crabber. Now I have to do this infinite flutter. This is a really tricky flutter, because due to the camera perspective, sometimes it's hard to judge whether or not you're actually lined up with the tower, so I have to back up a little bit so I wouldn't be too far forward. But that flutter went really well. Now I can get the dash pepper, which does allow Yoshi to run on deep water. Again, because physics and science and all that. So I can use this to quickly collect the last 2 Silver Stars. And there's a really cool strat coming up here. Okay, I got this. Nice. So that's similar to what I did at the end of Hytale Falls 1, where I dismount off of Dash Yoshi while going up a really steep slope. You get a lot of height and distance with that. That's just a faster way to collect that last silver star. And this is one of those common medals that's kind of out of the way, but fortunately, the common star you get for doing that star is really, really fast, so it's more than worth it. And it's one of the last comments I'll actually do, so I kind of need it. That was barely off my gold, by the way. That was really good. That's a very hard level to get everything down in. So next we're going to do Starshine Beach 2, and this is normally a very, very long and roundabout level. You need to do a bunch of different things in order to get in order to be able to use clouds to climb up the tower and get to the star. But if you remember Honey Bloom 1, you probably remember the tech I did where I was able to jump off of clouds without actually having Cloud Mario. I can use that tech in this star to skip pretty much doing everything in this level. And our good friends from Pianta 5, the Chucksters, are going to help us out with that. So basically, I'm just going to have a Chuckster throw me onto the highest cloud, and then I'm going to jump off the cloud while I still have time to make it onto the tower. So a homing ground pound is usually what happens when I attempt a frame-perfect ground pound, but I press Z too late, which doesn't lose that much time. Now, the clouds aren't on the greatest cycles right now, so in a little bit I am going to turn the camera to get them off camera and manipulate the cycles a little bit so they're a bit more favorable. And it should be lined up to where if I just go right into the Chuckster, I'll be good to go. I have to spin at the right time here so I can actually make it to the cloud. Uh-oh. Okay. I wasn't supposed to turn around before doing that jump, but it worked out. And I basically just skipped the entire level by doing that. So that saves somewhere in the ballpark of like a minute as well. Because again, you have to do you have to go pretty much all around the entire level otherwise. So now there's just one star left before we can make it to the end of World 4 here. And this is another star that seems simple, but is a bit more harder than it lets on. And that's Chompworks Comet. So this is the last planet of Chompworks 1, but with Cosmic Clones. And what makes this level so hard is that, again, it's an auto-scroller. So if the Chomp breaks, then you have to wait for another one to come back, which is a really big time loss. And the Cosmic Clones make backtracking really difficult in this level. So you basically just don't want to screw up here. However, this is a level you can get a frame-perfect dial time in, but it's not really viable for RTA, so I'm not going to get it. Really, the only time save at which I kind of messed up is if you break that Chomp at the same time the cutscene starts, the next Chomp spawns a little bit sooner, but after that, the rest of this level is just an auto-scroller and trying not to get screwed by the Cosmic Clones. So I'm kind of taking it slow here so that I can kind of keep them off my back for the most part. And here, right here I'm just kind of crawling so I can keep them on kind of all bundled up. And they don't get in my way. And we're good to go now. So the optimal frame-perfect time for this level is 51.20 seconds, but in RTA I usually get around like a high 51 or a low 52. This is probably going to be like a mid 52 because I messed up at the beginning. Every frame counts, you know. So yeah, 52.41, a little over a second off the optimal time, so bad run. And now we have enough stars to go to the next boss level, which is going to be Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet. This is a very interesting level, because there's actually two different ways you can skip most of this level, and I'm actually going to be going for both of them in this run. So, the first skip I'm going to go for in Gravity Gauntlet 1 is called Behind the Castle, and I'm sure you can guess why it's called that. Basically, I'm going to be lava boosting behind that 2D castle there because there happens to be lava rendered behind there for some reason, and if I do it right, I can get pulled into the gravity field of the last 2D section of the level. And I have to do it on this level instead of the other skip because I need the common medal, and the common medal is right next to where you do behind the castle. So it's worth spending that time to get. And the common star here again is really fast. So I'm going to go a little bit past here to get the checkpoint and get the common medal, and then we're going to do the skip. This skip is much harder than it looks, by the way, so I'm going to spend some time focusing. Here goes nothing. Hopefully this works. Okay, we're good. So it doesn't look like it, but I actually have to be a very specific distance away from that castle in order to not die, because if you're too close or too far away, you'll just die, and it loses a ton of time. So you actually have to be a specific distance away from the castle that's like a little bit away from it. It's really hard to figure out, but thankfully that I got that skipped. It saves about like 20 seconds or so. And the rest of this level is pretty simple. But now it's time for the Bowser fight, and it's the same concept as the one from Lava Lair, you know, from an hour ago, but it's a lot trickier now. Mainly because in this fight, Bowser will only spawn 2 meteors at a time instead of the usual 3, and Bowser can actually punch out both meteors with the same punch, which can cost you a cycle and lose 20 seconds. In addition, there's now shockwaves coming off of Bowser's punches and the meteors, which means you have a lot more to dodge. But fortunately, though, this fight is still a little bit cozy. It gets a lot worse on the last fight. And dodging these first wave of attacks is very, very difficult, as you can see. So for this first hit, I'm going to go for a punch cancel. So Bowser's going to spawn these meteors here. And once he punches, I'm actually going to wait here for a little bit before I ground pound. I'm going to wait for him to start a punch attack. And then ground pound the meteor into him. And that will make him think he's already punched. So he spawns the meteors next. And that just nets a couple seconds of time save. And I don't have to do that for any other hits, because he's not going to try to punch after any other hits. One thing that is worth bringing up, you're probably not going to see it happen on this fight unless my aim is super bad, but Bowser's shell can deflect the meteors, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it feels like his hitbox actually grows. The shell's hitbox actually grows on the Galaxy Generator fight, and really with each fight. So if your aim is really, really bad on one of these fights, you can lose a cycle by just having the meteor bounce off of Bowser's shell, and it is the most annoying thing ever. But this should be good. I'm actually going to lure him a little bit over here so that this is in a better position. That was still a pretty good fight overall. The big thing with that level is behind the castle and then just not missing any hits in the Bowser fight. So that's it for that fight, and this will be it for World 4. But there's still a little over an hour and 10 minutes left in the run, so don't think I can relax yet. It's far from over. So naturally, we just finished World 4, so we would think that the next world we're going to do is World 5, because, you know, that's how numbers work. Nope, we're actually going to do our second cleanup section right now, just because now is a convenient time to do it. And again, we need to increase our star count so we can have enough to unlock the World 5 boss arena. So I'm actually going to be cleaning up the rest of the stars from Worlds 1 and 2 that I want to get. There's a couple of stars I could have gotten earlier, but for routing convenience, it's better to do them now. And a couple other stars that either had comment requirements that were locked behind, or letter requirements that were locked behind that I couldn't get earlier. But we're going to be getting all that out of the way now. just to help add to my star counts before I actually get some stars in World 5, because there's not too many fast stars in World 5. And again, I'm going to use the Grand World map to go straight from World 5 to World 2. So the first level I'm going to do here is Boulder Bowl 1. So Boulder Bowl 1 used to be the 15th star in the run, but since Honey Bloom 1 was added to the route, we have to move the star to way later. But this is useful because we can utilize another male toad warp like I used on Honey Bloom Secret with the 15th star. But I'll explain that after I do the star. This star has a pretty cool gravity exploit I can use to skip this planet over here, which is really good because that planet is terrible. You just have to kill a lot of really annoying enemies. And this is a pretty tough skip. You can do it both with and without Rock Mario, but with Rock Mario it's slightly harder. I have to do it on this level though because I need Rock Mario to get the Comet Medal. If you die to this skip, you have to redo everything, including getting this Comet Medal, so it's a really punishing time loss. But there's a couple of good visual cues for this skip, so hopefully this goes well. Alright, got it. And whenever I have Rock Mario, doing a jump followed by a spin will speed him up by a little bit. So that's why I did that a few times. So again, that skip, it only skips one planet, but it definitely saves like a minute. Because that planet is terrible. But speaking of terrible, now I have to fight this guy, Rolodillo, which is a really awkward boss to fight. So that first hit isn't too bad, but for these next 3 hits, I'm going to go behind him to avoid getting in his line of sight. Otherwise, he does this rolling attack that wastes a lot of time. What makes this hard is that you're trying to chase him while he's trying to chase you, which is, it's not a perfectly straight line always. And when you do the jump spins to try to extend your rolls, sometimes the planet's gravity just eats your jumps. And if you have the slightest wrong angles, then you miss the hits, and then you roll past him. And you usually end up in his line of sight. So yeah, there's that boss fight's just kind of annoying, but it went perfectly, so we're good. So the male toad warp I was talking about here. So because I got Boulder Bowl 1, I'm going to be taken down to the engine room to see Rock Mario getting unlocked. But because I got this star and Chompworks 1, I just unlocked a male toad letter for a star I can now get in Boulder Bowl. And so again, that's going to warp me out of the engine room and straight to the male toad. And that saves a few seconds of travel time. So here's the male toad letter in question. And funnily enough, this is actually the next star I'm going to be doing. So this is going to be a escort mission with an enemy who really has every right to die in the Mario universe, but we have to save him this one time. And here I'm also going to get to do Boulder Bowl 1 skip without Rock Mario, because I don't need to get the Comet Medal this time, because I've already got it. And as you're about to see, this is much, much easier. Aside from this jump across the bridge, because the camera can be a little bit awkward. I spun a little too close to the wall there. Immediately eat my words, that's fun. But anyways, that's not a huge death. That's probably like maybe 15 seconds. There we go. But now it's really easy. I just run up the ramp, long jump to the left, spin, don't even have to set it up. But now we have to do the escort mission with this Goomba, and I have to have very specific movement here so that I manipulate the Goomba to do what I want it to do. In other words, not stop in the middle of the road, because it can do that, and that can cause it to get killed, crushed by a boulder. And you only get 2 Goombas to work with, and if both of them die, you have to restart the level. Also, the game can randomly softlock on that cutscene, and I have no idea why. It just stays in the cutscene forever and never gets out. Unfortunately, this game autosaves, so you don't have to worry about that, like, ruining your run, but it's still annoying. Well, at least the important parts of that star went well. That's not a huge deal to me. So I'm going to be getting another comment that I could have gotten earlier, but again, for routing convenience, it's better to just do it now. Especially with the way we do this route now, because I now need this star to be a filler star. Specifically for Voltable's comment. So Hightail Falls comment is Hightail Falls 1, but on a timer. And it's not like Sky Station where I have to collect clocks. You have more than enough time to beat this level. And the only major differences with this level are the holes in the ground and the meteors falling, which for the most part don't even get in the way. But also, I'm going to be doing a different strat for the end of this level. I no longer need to get the Comet Medal since, well, this is the Comet, so I get to do a slightly faster strat at the end of this level. But for the most part, the first portion of this level is going to be the same. And these pink guys are called Smeeches. If you touch them, they latch onto Yoshi's tongue and make it impossible to eat anything else, so you have to shake to get them off. And again, this level, if you missed it earlier, it's just all about keeping the dash pepper in effect for as long as possible. If you bonk in a wall head-on while traveling up one of these vertical walls, you fall all the way down, by the way, which loses a lot of time. Fortunately, that did not happen, so we're good. So instead of doing that cool Infinite Flutter strat you saw me do in Hightail Falls 1, I'm actually going to take the launch star and do a particularly interesting jump that I think you'll enjoy. This is a hard jump to get first try, though. You have to jump at a very precise time in order for this to work. Okay, I jumped too early there. There we go. That is faster if you're not going to get the Comet Medal. So to kind of give a TLDR explanation of why that works, there's a variable in this game called tilt, where basically the farther back Mario or Luigi is leaning back on the planet due to its gravity, the higher their jumps will be. And so since you're leaning super far back on the edge of that wall, you can gain a super high jump. Okay, now it's time for probably the biggest RNG fest of this entire run. Not even kidding. So get your blessed RNGs out, because this star is terrible. This is a romp comment where you have to kill 30 of the crabber enemies on the planet where Rorodillo was. But the crabbers don't really have any discernible pattern whatsoever. And you only have a minute to kill these guys, and if you run out of time, you have to redo the entire star. And so this is a very stressful star 2 hours into the run. Also, there's a bit of tech in this game that is never explained anywhere, but you can actually jump out of your rolling mode by just jumping and pressing Z, and you can cancel it early. And that's very useful on this star, because otherwise this level would just be impossible. Alright, so I'm basically kind of hoping that these crabbers group up a lot until I get to about 24 or 25 of them. This is really bad decision making on my part. And then once I get to about 24 or 25, I can start focusing on the individual ones. Alright. This isn't horrible so far, but it could be way better. Got some epic lag there. Alright, I need to get this blue crabber. The blue crabbers have really erratic movement, so they're the hardest to get. I'm running a little short on time here, but I think I have 2 left, so I think I can do this. That was really bad, but at least I didn't fail the mission. Optimally, you want to finish that mission with, like, over 20 seconds on the clock remaining. I had, like, less than 10, so I played that pretty bad, but for a marathon, all that really matters is you don't fail it. I had to hit the last crabber with 1 second on the timer remaining, which is massive Monka S. And I grabbed some star bits at the last second. That's the text box I try to avoid by not collecting any star bits. That's one reason why Bang Toad is super useful. By the way, 150 of the star bits I need for Hungry Luma Galaxies actually come from those Rosalina letters that give 50 star bits each. There's 3 of them I get in this run, and I've gotten 2 of them so far. I need 1 more, and I'll have enough star bits for the last Hungry Luma Galaxy. So now we're going to do Fiery Flotilla's Comet. This is the Gobblegut fight again, but on a timer. And again, Nintendo gives you way too much time to do these missions. I'm going to be going for basically the same strats I went for on the first Gobblegut fight, where I just attack him in the air a bunch of times. And hopefully this will go exactly like it did the first time. But if it doesn't, you'll get to see why people hate this fight so much. Again, just getting those 3 bulges on the first phase. That first phase is a bit easier than the second phase. You have to be a lot more careful on the second phase. And your movement has to be a lot more precise. Okay, so I was only in that level for 13 in-game seconds, according to that timer, not counting cutscenes. But yeah, 2 for 2 perfect Gobblegut. Again, that fight takes a lot of practice to actually get down like that. So, really happy that it went well for me both times. But that's a hard fight to get consistent at. And in case you're wondering if we're going to ever have to fight the version of that boss that's on fire, the answer is, thankfully, no. But now I'm completely done with stars I want to get in Worlds 1 and 2. So I can finally move on to World 5 and actually get some stars there. I'm not going to get too many here, but the ones I am going to get are pretty interesting, I think. By the way, you saw me before as I was long jumping to that last star, I backflipped. You need some amount of acceleration to do a long jump, otherwise you'll just backflip like that. It's kind of annoying, especially when you're trying to get a little bit hasty. Space Storm 1 is a very movement-intensive level, and this is a level where, especially on that cylinder planet with all the elevators, time losses can really snowball from one simple mistake, because it's incredibly cycle-based. So, at the start of this cylinder planet, there's a somewhat finicky long jump I have to do here that will help me save about 5 seconds in platform cycles. Hopefully I get this. Alright, got it. I just have to not miss any cycles here. Alright, that was a well-played second planet. That planet's very difficult to get down. That long jump took me about an hour to learn how to get consistent at. Which goes to show how annoying it is. Now I just gotta lure this Bob-omb over here to break some glass. And instead of walking all the way around there, I can just long jump straight to the launch star. And now I have this little pole star section. To move through pole stars optimally, you have to release yourself from the pole star before you reach its center. And with the amount of obstacles there are in this area, actually doing this section optimally is terrible. And also it's pointer-based, so, you know, that just adds some fun. Alright. Luckily when you get shocked, you get suspended in midair for a little bit, which can make backing it up really easy. That was still pretty good. It's pretty much a given that you'll probably take like 1 or 2 hits of damage there due to the amount of stuff in the way that can shock you. And a 115 is a pretty decent IL time for that level in runs. And now pretty much the entire rest of World 5 is opened up for stars for the taking. But we're going to spend a little bit more time in Space Storm, because there's Space Storm 2, which is one of the fastest stars in the game if done optimally. It also pays homage to a buoy bass from Galaxy 1, including having the buoy bass music, which I'm sure you'll like that. Unfortunately, you won't get to hear too much of this song, especially if this level goes as planned. So those blue switches, because all the moving obstacles in this level are really fast, those actually slow down time. I'm going to try to go through this level without hitting any of those, though, because I don't need to do that. Right, that might mess me up, but we should be good. So instead of going to the right and doing with all that, I'm just going to jump up to the left here, jump onto this wall, and skip this entire first section of the level. Then use some upwards momentum from that thwomp to get up here. And then I can skip this top-man fight by just doing a triple jump to get the star. Alright, one little flop there, but still pretty good. Like I said, you're not going to get to hear too much of that song. You only got to hear that for like 30 seconds. But that's another visually impressive level. It's also really hard to get down. And thank God we do not have to do the letter star in this run. So here we're off to Shiverburn, which is sort of the, you know, Freeze Flame Galaxy, Hailfire Peaks of this game. I like how I just made a Banjo, because I like how I made a Banjo-Tooie reference when I've never played the game. And, if for this first star, this is a secret star. If you missed your opportunity to, guess, or in the first minigame, or if you, didn't get it right on the first skating minigame, this is your second opportunity to guess. So, again, this time it's anywhere between 600 and 900, and again, only guess in multiples of 10. This might be a bit weird. Okay, we're good. I just skipped that C there by using the clouds. The patterns you can get from this minigame are the same as the ones in Freezy Flake, and they can be rotated in the same ways. Really the only difference is that you need to get 100 points more, which is not hard if you're good at it. Like, you have a decent amount of leeway. The world record for this, I believe, is like a little over 1,000 points, in case anybody was wondering. But that requires, like, ridiculous skating skills. And funnily enough, I actually got the same pattern both times. Or at least I got the same rotation. Great, 800 exactly. Slightly worse than last time, but still decent. And still definitely crushed the chimp. So yeah, that's the second of the three. We're not going to be doing any of the lighter chimp stars because those take way too long. But there is one more chimp challenge, but it's not necessarily as special. So now I'm going to go to Shiverburn 1. This is a pretty cool level because there's a lot of really cool tricks you do in this level. So to start, there's a gravity exploit I do at the start here that once again uses Cloud Mario. So I'm going to skip from the beginning of this first planet to the end of the second planet using clouds. I'm going to use a somewhat convoluted setup to do so. I need to be low enough to enter the back half of this planet. This should be good. Nice. So now I need to detour a little bit in front of this launch star to grab the Comet Medal. And then I'm actually going to intentionally hit the lava so I can lose Cloud Mario, because he's a little too floaty for this next section. So here I'm going to turn the camera to make some icicles in the next section spawn later than normal, to manipulate their cycles. And I can skip firing coconuts back at these guys by just long jumping past them like that. That was a little close, but we're good. So Prince Picante is an interesting fight with the strats I do in this run, because there are faster strats than what I'm going to be doing here, but because I'm not very good at them, I'm going to do the strats that don't really involve RNG. So I'm going to intentionally miss this first hit, and I'm going to get this second one really late and far away from Prince Picante. And this might seem weird, but what I'm doing is setting him up so that he's never on that side of the battlefield during the second or third hits. Otherwise, he'll do this upwards firing attack that is very RNG dependent, which you can use for a faster strat. But again, I'm not very good at it, and this strat barely loses any time, and it's a lot easier once you figure it out. So I just do this strat instead. And that was a pretty good level. Again, there's a lot of really fun stuff that happens in this level, including those boss fight strats. And this star also is going to have the last of the 3 male toad letters that give 50 star bits. So after this, I'll have enough star bits for the last Hungry Luma galaxy. Because we're not going to be going to Fleet Glide. That galaxy is slow. Or it's too slow to be in the route. So instead, we're going to go to a very annoying galaxy, both for casual players and for speedrunners, and that is Upside Dizzy. So this is sort of the sequel level to Right Side Down, except the gravity changes are a lot more nonsensical than they were in Right Side Down, and it's kind of less in your control. And Upside Dizzy 1 in particular is very heavily cycle-based, especially in the second half. And you need to have really good movement to make the proper cycles. So this first section is one of the hardest parts of the level right off the bat. This backflip is really tricky. Oh, so yeah, what just happened there, sometimes you just randomly turn around in midair, and I don't know why that is. Unfortunately, that doesn't lose too much time. Here I'm going to go for a little bit of a Goomba bounce to skip into this pipe. And I got it. Nice. Now here I am not in control of the gravity switching at all. If you do not have a preset route for this level, you're just going to stumble through it and lose ridiculous amounts of time. Alright, that's fine. I have a decent amount of leeway with this strat anyways. Alright, a little bit slow, but I'll take it. Again, that level requires a ton of practice to figure out like a concrete route for it. But if that wasn't enough, there's another star that is equally as annoying, in my opinion. And if you remember Right Side Down Secret Star, this is probably going to feel somewhat familiar to you. At the start of this star, there's a cool Goomba bounce I can do to get into the pipe, but this requires me to not mess up that backflip at all. So, hopefully I don't get that random turnaround again, because if not, I have to do a slower backup strat that's like 5 seconds slower. I got it again. That's really annoying. So I have to wait here. So that's what I would have done, but like 1 cycle earlier. I can do this finicky triple jump to get into this pipe early. Now, this box breaking minigame isn't nearly as hard to do optimally as Right Side Downs, because you don't have as many awkward angles to throw it at. But it's still difficult because it's a little bit tighter, and you have a lot more boxes to break. Another thing to keep in mind when throwing fireballs is that the fireballs don't actually come out of Mario's center, they come out of his right hand. So you have to be a little bit to the left of where you want to aim, otherwise you're going to miss. Alright, a 9 is optimal, so a 7 isn't terrible. I did miss a couple of shots, though. Not the greatest Upside Dizzy, but for no reset, I'll take it. Thankfully, we don't have to do that level ever again, which is a blessing, because that level is really annoying. And this is the last time the Purple Idiot's going to bring us down to the engine room, because there's no more stars that we get that actually bring us down here. We flat out just don't use 3 of the power-ups in this game. So now we're going to go to the second spoopy level of the run, because you know every Mario game needs at least 2 spoopy levels. And that's going to be Boo Moon. Now, Boo Moon is not particularly exciting for the most part, especially the 2 stars we do here, because it's kind of just a bunch of snake blocks at first, but there's some cool tricks you can do in these 2 stars that I'm going to do here. And I think you'll like how peaceful this level can be, along with the cool tricks it has. So on this first planet, it's actually faster to only long jump at the beginning and the end. Everywhere else you lose time, because this planet's curved really weirdly. Here's another place I can get a frame perfect camera cancel, and I got it. Again, that's a 60th of a second to time. So thankfully you can skip most of the stuff in these snake block auto-scrollers, like that, by doing some very tight long jumps. This one I kind of have to ride for most of the way, though, because there really isn't any way to skip it. But keep the fact, so that wall that just turned and how it affected the gravity, keep that in mind for the next star, because that's going to come into play later. And while I'm here, I need to get this common medal, so might as well get it now. So this snake block is terrible, but instead of riding it all the way, we're just going to skip it. And just long jump straight to the star. That's actually a skip I would recommend casual players to do, because it's really not that hard. And doing that snake block casually is like one of the most annoying things ever. So next up is going to be Boom Moon 1, and this is a level with a skip that I think you'll pretty enjoy, and it also was what makes this star fast enough for the 90% route. This also did not used to be in 90%, but it now replaces one of the super massive stars, and this was before Honey Bloom 1 was implemented. So this is going to be a gravity exploit that skips the rest of that like second to last snake block you saw. So I have to do most of this first section again. That long jump's always scarier than it needs to be because you just barely make it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to activate this wall, but then I'm actually going to turn around and head back to this snake block. I'm going to wait for the gravity to change. And jump up here. Long jump off, spin, and onto the launch star. That was really close. Ugh, I messed that up. That skip is a little bit awkward because due to the way the gravity works, your controls on there are a little bit inverted, so the directions you have to hold are really weird. But thankfully I got that first try. I think I spun a little bit later than I would have liked, so I nearly missed it. And this last section is just a silver star section where I can one cycle the whole thing. Now we only need one more star before we can get to the boss level of World 5, and it's a pretty simple star, thankfully. Oh yeah, and another reason why this star is kind of slow, and it used to be slow for any percent, is because of this Mailtube letter. Because you can't really skip Space Storm 2, which is the other requirement for this letter. So, last but not least, in World 5, we're going to get Shiverburn Comet. And this star is the third Romp Comet of the run. It's where we have to kill the 30 Octumba enemies on the planet with Prince Vicante. And we get to use Rainbow Mario here. And you're probably wondering whether or not I would use skating or running here, if you've been paying attention. And the answer is I'm actually going to run, but I'm actually going to use both. Because I'm going to skate to build up momentum, but then switch to running, because it's easier to turn while running. And that will allow me to make sharper turns to get these Octumbas. So I'm going to skate to build up momentum, grab the Rainbow Star, and then jump out of it, and now I can just start running. And if I do this right, I can kill all 30 of these on one Rainbow Star. hard to know right where the star is going to be, so sometimes I mess it like that. Okay, now we're getting to one of the scary parts of this run. So, I haven't really done any motion control based levels in this run yet, such as like the ball rolling games or the fluzzer levels. That's not going to change, but this level has aiming cannons, and the problem with that is that it's pointer based. And this wouldn't be so bad if the 2 cannon shots you had to make were extremely precise, and you miss either of them, you're going to die, and it's not going to be a 10-second death. The worst part about it is, usually when you get here on good pace, your hands are super shaky, and it's hard to aim properly, and then when you go to press A, your hand twitches at the last possible second, and you move in a random direction, and then you die. So I'm going to need you to bless hand RNG here, because that's the big factor that comes into play here. This first cannon shot's definitely the scarier of the 2. I have a very small target to aim at. So I'm going to try to shoot right at this boomerang bro's face. Right. That might be too high, actually. Okay, that was like barely low enough. So that's just a quick kill for that hammer bro there. I messed up the setup for that other one, but didn't lose too much time. The second cannon shot is thankfully a little bit more lenient, but the strat after it is difficult. So you're supposed to use clouds to make your way to the ending platform of this section, but that's overrated, so we're just going to do this instead. That saves like minimal time, but it's not that bad of a strat, and it looks really cool. So, worth doing. You know, 2 hours and 20 minutes into a 3-hour speedrun. And if that wasn't bad enough, now we have to fight Boomsday, which is a particularly annoying fight, because if everything goes right, this fight is easy, but if one thing goes wrong, then it will make you look like a complete joke. So, let's just not do that. Fortunately, these first 2 hits aren't too bad. On this second hit, before he's gonna try to like suck my clouds in, so I'm gonna wait a little bit. And he is invulnerable for a little bit, so I do have to wait anyways before I get that ground pound. That's about as early as you can get it. And now I have to be really fast for the third hit, otherwise I'm gonna lose a lot of time. I have to make it to the top of this cockpit before he catches up with me. Alright, we're good. By the way, this is where Bowser Jr. canonically dies. Because if you're ever wondering why he's not in 3D World or Odyssey, that is probably why. Alright, that's it for one of the scariest levels of the run. Thankfully, I made it past there with little issues. And now, there's just one world in this run left, and I hate to break it to you, but it's not over yet. This is probably the hardest part of the run. World 6 is the segment where runs go to die, because there's a lot of really difficult strats here, and failure almost always results in a super big mistake, or like a super big time loss. This is also the longest world segment of the run, which makes it even better. But yeah, we're almost at the end. Just a little under 40 minutes to go, I'd say. Provided everything goes smoothly, which hopefully it does. So, to start off, we're going to do Melty Monster. And this is the only 3-star galaxy in the run where I will actually be collecting all 3 stars in one trip, because I can actually do that this time around. And none of these stars are particularly easy. There's always something off-putting about them. So Melty Monster 1, the tornadoes on this second planet here that you see in the cutscene here, those are on global cycles from the moment I enter the level. So I have to have really good movement in this pulsar section to have a good shot at making the fast cycle. That was pretty good, so I should have a shot. And this next planet here just simply has a ton of small platforming skips, most of them involving lava boosting. Because, you know, there's lava, might as well use it. And we have a conveniently placed life mushroom right here. That should be good. Ugh. If you're angled... Okay, I'm actually going to go for this. I think I can still make this. Okay. I'm actually going to play it a little bit safe here and do an extra swing to get this coin. Because I really don't want to go into this section with 1 health and without grabbing that last checkpoint. So I'm going to do this super cool long jump at the start of this section to skip up these first few planets in Magmas. Like so. And this section's annoying because every single planet here has its own gravity field. And it's super easy to just get thrown all over the place. And for some reason, hitting that crystal from the left is easier than hitting it from the right. That was a pretty good last section. I cut it a little close with the tornado cycle, but please grab the star. Otherwise, that was not too bad of a Melty Monster one. Just had some sketch here and there. And the last 2 levels, funnily enough, aren't even about lava at all. There's no lava in either of them. They're about Rock Mario, which is odd. So the order I do these next 2 stars in might seem a little bit weird, because we used to do 1, then Secret, then 2. Because then you can auto-select for all 3 stars. But if you do 1, then 2, then Secret, when you re-enter Melty Monster for the 3rd time, only 2 stars will show up on the Start Select menu instead of 3, which saves just a tiny bit of time. But it's frames, and it's easy time save, so we do it. So the thing about Rock Mario is that once you take a ramp, you can't actually stop. So this level is kind of just non-stop using Rock Mario. This is also a really good level to farm star bits in. If you... Most Galaxy 2 runners use an SD card and just refresh their save every time they want to do a run with Bank Toad. But if you don't have that, this is a good level to farm star bits in. Because you can just repeatedly die over and over until you get to 999. And then you can get the star and do it again. So for the most part, there isn't too much to say about this level, except for a strat I'm going to go for at the very end. I'm only going to try it once for the sake of the marathon. It's called Zigzag Skip. Basically what you do is there's this section at the end that's sort of like a Z, I guess you could say. And there's fences you're normally supposed to take that reflect you and go along this zigzag. But if you can roll across the tiny gaps if you do it in a very precise way, and skip having to do that. The skip only saves about 3 seconds, and it loses about 45 if you fail it, and die. So, I'm only going to try this once, but hopefully we get this. And again, I'm spinning after every jump to go a little bit faster. Alright, we got the skip. Very nice. The hard part about that is actually not just making it across the gas, but then also turning back around in time. Otherwise, you'll just roll off the right side and die. But it's not like taking the fences is any safer, because then you risk the fences just bouncing you in a random direction, and you die anyways. So it's kind of a darned if you do, darned if you don't. Okay, so now it's time for Melty Monster's Secret, the bowling minigame with the chimp. And I don't really want to spoil anything yet. I'm gonna really want to focus for this level because I'm gonna be attempting some strats that I've not attempted much in the marathons yet, and I haven't really done too much in runs yet. And I'm gonna focus while I'm doing them, and I'll explain them afterwards if I either get them or fail them. But again, if I die doing this, I'm not gonna bother with them. By the way, there's 56 pins here, and I need to hit 50 of them. Okay. So here goes nothing. Okay. That went really well. Okay, so what I did there, so you probably noticed that on some of the ramps I stopped after I took the ramp, and on some of the ramps I kept going. So what I did on the ramps where I kept going, if you do a spin jump onto a ramp, you can actually cancel the ramp's effect entirely, and then you can jump at the very edge of the ramp and make it to the next platform so you can continue rolling. It saves like, I don't know, maybe like 1.5 to 2 seconds for each time you do it, and so I did it on 3 of the ramps and saved roughly 6 to 7 seconds, but they're essentially blind jumps, and if you mess them up, you die. If you think that's nuts, the world record holder, Nemi, who has the only sub 3 in this category, does that on 6 different ramps. And so I only did it on half the ramps he does. But we're done with Melty Monster, we're past all the scary stuff, and now we can move on to bigger and better things, such as this level, Clockwork Ruins, which is also kind of a nightmare. So Clockwork Ruins Secrets is really the only viable star here, because I want to get to the galaxy after this, but Clockwork Ruins 1 is 3 minutes long, and no. So I have to spend some time collecting 30 coins here to feed a hungry Luma. Thankfully though, once I do that, the star is basically done. This is a star where you really, really don't want to die, because otherwise the cycles of these platforms will be off, and you can't really do them fast. So, just don't die here. I'm going to play it a little bit safe in a few places so that I don't do that. Fortunately, this route works out pretty nicely. Here I'm looking forward in first-person mode to advance the cycles of the platform after this one. I got somewhat of a finicky triple jump here to make movement here a little bit faster. And thankfully we can get 10 of the coins from this item box here, which makes the star a lot more manageable. Now we have 30 coins. Hopefully I don't die right here. Okay. And this is the last coin Luma I'm going to be feeding in this run. So, this last planet is just a bunch of hammers, and again, you're supposed to hit switches to slow down time, but there's a pretty simple skip you can do here, where you just triple jump wall kick up to the higher level. You don't have to spin there, but my angle was a little bit rough, so I wanted to play it safe. So yeah, that star kind of sucks to learn, but once you have a consistent route for doing it like I do, it's pretty much just muscle memory. And it's not exactly an ideal star to have in the route, but again, it will give me access to a galaxy that I think you're going to appreciate me doing in this run. So hopefully this galaxy looks familiar to some of you. If we got any Super Mario 64 fans in the chat, I know I'm one myself, let your voices be heard. Because this is Throwback Galaxy, which is sort of an homage to Whomp's Fortress from Super Mario 64. And as a matter of fact, this first star is sort of a recreation of the first star of Whomp's Fortress. And the Comet Medal is actually where the Shoot into the Wild Blue star was in the original game. So I do have to make a bit of a detour to that Comet Medal, but yeah, this is going to be my best, I'll just pick simply impersonation. So feel free to let loose with any SM64 memes you have, as long as the moderators allow it. So I can do this little cool triple jump, ledge grab. Oh, I failed it. Easy backup though. Get up to the Comet Medal. Now we can do some flashy wall jumps and shenanigans, hopefully. To get up here. Now we get to kill this Whomp guy. You can actually skip killing this Whomp by having him clip you through the floor, and then you can fall to the other side of the arena. But that's stupid and only saves minimal time. And again, if you fail it, you die. So, not really worth it unless you're Nemi. So this is the real King Whomp, and his dialogue is the same as it is in SM64. And unlike SM64, we can't glitch through him, so we do have to fight this guy somewhat as intended. And for the most part, this fight is simple. You just kind of want to make sure you don't get hit by those little wimp guys, because they can stun you. And you want to be off the ground when King Womp stops. Like, otherwise he'll stun you, and that makes it really easy to kind of get stun locked into death. And I have had bad experiences with this fight. So, yeah. Oh, we're good. So I jumped there. King Womp's vibrating after you beat him like that, and if you jump on a frame where he's vibrating up, you can get a super high jump. That's completely useless. But I failed it. It's nothing more than a swag strat, though. So that's a pretty cool level to show off, but in addition to that, we have access to 2 relatively fast stars now. And this is also going to be the last time the fat purple idiot brings us to the bottom of the starship to bother us. He's going to want to bother us one more time after this, but we have some big skips coming your way, so stay tuned. Can I get some eyes emojis in the chat? And now we're going to be paying homage to SM64DS, for those of you who care to remember that game. I personally enjoyed it, but I don't know about you. And we have silver stars to collect, and unfortunately they're not in any red coin positions or anything, but they are spread out around the level in interesting positions, and you get Cloud Mario, so there's some really cool movement you can do from one to the next. When you bounce off this bottom buddy at the start here, you want to actually be holding A to get more height off the bounce. So for this second silver star, I want to wait to make the cloud here before... I want to collect the silver star first and then make the cloud, because otherwise then I have to wait for that cloud to expire and then make another cloud, which wastes time. And here I'm long jumping off to the right again, because I want to be above the abyss to gain some speed. We're going to do some more cloud boosting action here. You get to this silver star. Now we're going to do some more interesting cloud boosted jumps to get to this final silver star. But now hopefully I can ground pound right to the end of the... right to the star here. When you ground pound, in case you haven't noticed, you get sent to the ground a lot quicker. So stuff like that is doable. So that's a pretty fun level, but it's also fast, so it's worth doing in the route. And we could continue with the top path at this point, but the top path has a galaxy called Battle Belt, which sucks, and we have dodged it like the plague in any percent. So I'm actually going to be using my remaining 1800 star bits to head down here. And we're going to unlock Flash Black, because Flash Black is just... Flash Black gives us access to 2 fast stars, and then we have Slimy Spring, which is just a better level anyways. So we're going to feed this last big Chungus. And this is going to unlock Flash Black, which is, unlike Throwback, is not a reference to anything. Flash Black's gimmick is where the lights sort of flicker on and off in a cycle, and you only get a brief glimpse of what the level actually looks like every few seconds. But I played this level probably hundreds of times by now, so I know exactly what the level layout is. So we don't need to worry about that. And this mansion is just kind of climbing through it with a Blimp Yoshi. Again, we're not going to be infinite fluttering because that's slower. And there isn't much to say about this. Again, I'm going to use the nunchuck here to cancel the Blimp Fruit early so I can keep my Wii remote pointer on the next Blimp Fruit. Right there, it doesn't matter nearly as much, because I have to wait anyways. Alright, potentially cool strat for the Comet Medal coming up here if I can pull this off. Hopefully I can, because this looks really cool. Okay. A little bit slow, but we made it work. And this last section is just collecting a bunch of silver stars. It's pretty straightforward. Also, this yellow platform coming up is on a different cycle every time you play this level, I swear. That's on a good cycle now, so we're fine. And depending on what the cycles are like here, I might have to make a literally blind jump to the star, if you know what I mean. Alright, we're fine. Fortunately, I have this level memorized, like I said earlier. Alright. So again, the top path has Battle Bow, which is which any star you could do there is long and tedious. But this level, in terms of time, is not really a better alternative, but it's better than Battle Belt, and it's also just a better level in general. So, it's worth it to do it instead of taking the top path. This will also be the star with the last common medal in the run, and I believe I am good on common medals. I should have 32 after this level, so I haven't missed any. Unfortunately, this level is kind of a big resident sleeper, because you're basically just swimming underwater with the shell for 2 minutes, which is a very nice break at the end of this run, right before you get into some action-packed stuff again. So I'm very thankful that this level is in the route, is what I'm saying. So, we got a third and final slope boost at the start here. Hopefully I don't fail this, otherwise I have to do the slide of shame. Alright, we got it. And now we're just going to kind of swim here. So either get your resident sleepers out, or if you have any questions just about the run in general. I know I haven't been interacting with chat a whole lot, so if you have any questions, now would probably be a good time to ask them. Because I don't really have much to say. I know there's a bit of a delay as well, so it might be a while before I actually answer your question. That was suboptimal. Now I get to go zoom by taking the shell and going through some of these speed rings. If I hadn't already collected a coin earlier in the level, I would try to do these coinless strats where you just touch the outer edges of these rings and dodge the coins. But I accidentally grabbed a coin earlier in the level, so it wouldn't have mattered. But I got it anyways, so cool to show off. Now we're coming up on something that's actually exciting. So you can wake up now, because we're about to do something cool. Hopefully I don't fail this now that I've said it. Oh, okay, I guess we're not doing it. I was trying to jump out of the water there and fling the shell in midair. But that's not too much slower. And by the way, don't ask how Captain Toad got in. Don't ask how Captain Toad got in that chest. So this will actually be the last non-comet star I collect before Bowser's Galaxy Generator, because the last 6 stars I'm going to be collecting to fulfill the 70-star requirement are all comets. I'm going to be collecting 2 from World 3, 2 from World 4, and 2 from World 6 to round out the run, and then we'll be ready to take on the final level. But that doesn't mean it's over yet. And I am good on common medals, so that's a good thing to know. So the first comet I'm going to do is a Honeyhall's Comet. Again, this is another star I could have gotten way earlier, but due to routing nonsense that is way too complicated for me to explain on stream, it's actually better for me to get this star now as a buffer star for the Eatbot Comet and Gravity Gauntlet Comet. So Honeyhall's Comet is the last half or so of Honeyhall's 2, but with Cosmic Clones. It's still nothing but a bunch of long jumps. But the pattern of long jumps is a bit different now because the cycles are a little bit different. But overall, this level isn't too bad as long as you don't get super thrown off. Again, I'm not going to go for a jump cancel here just so I don't get my cycles thrown off. Bye, Luigi. It is easy to die on the start if you lose track of what you're doing. And you get thrown off by just a tiny amount. Oh, we should be good. Yeah, pretty simple level. But now we're getting to the late game run enders. These last 15 minutes of the run are anything but easy. Especially these next 2 stars. So Beatbox Comet spawns at 31 Comet Medals, and because Comets spawn in order of Comet Medal requirements, the other 2 Comets in World 6 had to spawn first, so I just needed another filler star. So now I can do this Comet. And this star outright lies to you, but because it says the blocks are now transitioning in double time, but if you remember, in beat block 1 they switch every 8 beats of the song. Now they're switching every 2 beats, or every other beat. So it's actually 4 times as fast. It doesn't matter too much in terms of cycles though, but it does make the level a lot more terrifying than it needs to be. Although we get Yoshi midway through this level for literally no reason, so we can just infinite flare to skip most of it. And hopefully I can nab the checkpoint mid-flutter. Alright, here's the scary part. Shouts to my PB for dying before this part, by the way. You have to be very careful with your movement here, or else you can die easily. Alright, I should be able to land on either the green block or the star platform here if I just shake. Alright, we're good. Again, shout out to this level being the only level in my current PB where I died in. And it only cost me like 8 seconds, because it was like right after I grabbed a checkpoint. So that's Beat Block Comet over and done with, but now we have this star. This is the one that takes 32 Comet Medals to spawn, and let's just say I don't like this star very much. So, in Gravity Gauntlet Comet, I get to go for the skip that isn't behind the castle because it saves about 10 additional seconds. But basically the premise of this skip is when you hit a lava wall as opposed to a lava floor, the second time you hit the lava after hitting a lava wall, you gain a lot of horizontal speed. And I can use this for another gravity exploit that's about 10 seconds faster than behind the castle. But, the inputs you have to do while in midair for the skip are extremely finicky, and it's super easy to die to the skip in many different ways. And if you die to the skip, you lose like 30 seconds, and you basically kill your run 2 hours and 50 minutes in, so that's fun. So, hopefully this goes well. I have no faith in this. Okay, that somehow worked. So, if you land too far to the... If you spend too long in the air and land too far to the left when doing that skip, sometimes you just fall through the floor and die, even after you land. I got pretty lucky there, but, yeah, that was, that's a very tough skip. You have to switch directions in midair at very precise intervals, and messing anything up results in death. But yeah, very happy I got that first try. That's like the last big hurdle in this category. And now we get a couple of breather stars. So Starshine Beach Comet, this is the comet we had to go out of our way to get the Comet Medal for. And You would think that this is a huge collectathon like some of the purple coin missions in Galaxy 1 were, but no, they're just kind of all in rows on the beach and you use Dash Yoshi. This is a really, really fast star. In other words, it was worth it to spend 10 seconds getting that common medal. And the star is pretty easy too. As long as you're good at making tiny, tiny adjustments on the control stick, which is not always easy to do. And it's even harder for speedrunning because I don't want to miss too many purple coins, otherwise I won't be able to do a small time-saving strat at the end. Okay, so I should be able to just, yeah, I can move off to the right here, and I don't need to get that many purple coins here. So just going off to the right of that tower is a little bit faster than going to the left, as long as you have enough purple coins. And there we go. And now the remaining 2 stars I need to get to fulfill 70 stars are simply in World 6. So we're closing out this run pretty shortly here. So we're going to use our Grand World Map one more time to make a travel here. And our first comet is going to be Throwback Comet, which is right here. So if you remember Throwback 2, and you like that star, you're probably going to enjoy this star because it's pretty much the exact same thing. The only difference is that there happens to be a timer at the bottom of the screen. And also there's going to be some cycles that are slightly different at the start because the level intro cutscene shows different parts of the level. But for the most part, this is pretty much the same thing as Throwback 2. So this bump here, I think that's what it's called, it's a little tighter to get past without slowing down. You have to have good long jumps to make it past. But once you get here, it's pretty much the same from there on out. One thing that's kind of annoying about cloud canceling, that happens rarely, but it tends to happen at the worst possible times. So the inputs to do a cloud cancel are you shake the Wii remote and then press Z, which are also the same inputs for homing ground pound. You're not normally able to do a normal spin while you have clouds in your inventory, but sometimes whenever you make a cloud, Mario just does a... Okay, that was really bad. Mario just does a homing ground pound for literally no reason. And that just causes you to fall straight down, and it's really annoying whenever it happens, because it's hard to prevent. Even worse is doing a frame-perfect ground pound when making clouds. Okay, so we have a funny star number now, which means that we have 1 star left before Bowser's Galaxy Generator. This run's, again, this run's closing out. So this last star is somewhat anticlimactic, but it is pretty cool because it requires being really good at multitasking. So this is the 4th Romp Comet, where you have to kill 30 Octumba enemies. You have 3 ways you can kill them here. You can either jump on them, spin, attack them, or you can shoot them with the star bit and then kick them. And in order to keep my momentum going for as long as possible, I want to kill as many of them with the star bit method. To sum it all up, I have to be able to collect star bits, aim them, keep track of my star bit counter, and control Mario all at the same time. This level takes a lot of focus. So hopefully this goes pretty well. But it's fun, it's really satisfying when it goes well. Okay. So that's the risk of going for that strat, is sometimes you miss aim and then you just run into the enemy because you didn't realize it in time. I was a little skeptical about that jump, so I did say. And you get Yoshi at the end here, and Yoshi can eat multiple enemies at a time, which makes this section a bit easier. Alright, that was a little bit slow, but I'll take it. Alright, so that's it. We have 70 stars, which means the only thing left to do is to complete Bowser's Galaxy Generator and finish the game. But first, we have the hardest skip in the entire run. The one and only Purple Idiot skip. It's a very precise trick, you know. So, the space before the Galaxy Generator space has a cutscene where Lubbo wants to talk to you and tell you it's like the final battle and you gotta get ready and all, but we don't want to listen to that. He's bothered us too many times, so we're just gonna do that instead. So yeah, basically all you have to do there is click on the Galaxy Generator space with the Wii Remote instead of moving there with the nunchuck, and you skip over the cutscene. I just saved 35 seconds and you didn't even realize it. Yeah, I was memeing when I said that skip was hard. It's actually the freest 30 seconds you'll ever save. And this is a really, really cool final level. There's a lot of really fun strats here. And it's really difficult, too. So to start off, we have another lava wall boost, which I'm going to use to skip killing these hammer bros in this next section. This one's much easier than the one in Gravity Gauntlet Comet. And now that I've said that, I'm going to fail it. Yeah, I just hit that lava wall, and the second time I hit a lava, I get a ton of speed. Which helps me get all the way down there. Okay, I wanted that coin, so I have to do a different strat now. Normally I would go in the lava to get rid of the spin drill here, but now I have to do that. Okay. So I have to get rid of the spin drill there because I want to be able to long jump, which allows me to skip most of that section. Alright, this next planet has a lot of elevators on cycles and bullet bills. It looks really impressive if pulled off properly, but that's the hard part. Oh my god. Ah, that's annoying. That's not a very slow death, per se, but it's still kind of annoying. My cycles were kind of off for some reason. I might have choked 301 to that, but it's okay. It looks like the hard part here is going pretty well. And if you thought all that looked crazy, we still have one more infinite flutter. And this is probably my favorite infinite flutter in the run, just because it looks so cool. You basically skip a huge Yoshi section and auto-scroller by just doing 2 different infinite flutters to go straight to the end. Because of the 10-second cooldown, I have to do this in 2 flutters. So this first one is going to be to the top of the castle, and I'm going to flutter over that giant pit of lava and dismount at the very end to reach the final platform of the level. I have to make sure to not go too high here, or else I'll soft lock and I'll have to leave the level. Alright, dismount right at the end. And we can land on this top platform here, because that's slightly more optimal than landing on the bottom. And you can actually hit 2 of these blocks at once with a super precise ground pound, but it's almost impossible. And pretty much there's no consistent setup for an RTA. Okay, but now we're off to the final Bowser fight. This isn't necessarily a common late game run ender, but it's up there. Because Bowser does go back to dropping 3 meteors in this fight, but he's a lot quicker to pull out his punches in this fight. So you have very, very little time to react with each hit. And again, every missed hit costs 20 seconds. It's super easy to miss hits in this fight. So hopefully this goes well. And again, Bowser's Shell's hitbox seems to be slightly bigger in this fight. So it is possible that even if it looks like you would hit Bowser on the other fights, it will bounce off the shell and cost you time. And I am going to be going for another punch cancel on this first hit like I did in Gravity Gauntlet, where I'm going to wait for him to charge up the punch attack. And I don't have to do that for any more hits again. So I just skip the punch attack by making him think he already did it. Right. So it's kind of in a suboptimal position, but it works. Another thing that can happen in this fight, that could happen on the 3rd hit if I'm too slow, you can hit Bowser while he's summoning the meteors and then cancel that phase by accident. So, when he So he won't spawn the meteors, but then he'll go into blowing fire, and then when he punches, there's no meteors for you to ground pound into him. That's a really stupid mistake. So I just have to get this third hit really quickly. Okay, that was really close to the shell. I thought it was going to bounce off. But thankfully I don't have to worry about that for the fourth hit, because I just go into a cutscene. Alright, I think this is a good position. Okay. This fight's really scary at the end of runs. Alright, and that's it, you know? Bowser's dead. We have successfully completed the game. So, I'm in control of the timer here, but I'll just say that time is coming up pretty soon, because we just gotta, you know, make our way to that star. That'll be it, right? Right? Just gotta do a couple long jumps, we're gonna get that cake, and debated. Yeah, there's more to this fight. You can't actually skip this final part of the fight. That star doesn't even have a hitbox. And what's even more annoying is that this fight is pathetically easy. You just press A and Z 4 times and you win. Bowser's one attack drops a coin in this fight, so it's literally impossible to die. But it has epic music. Unfortunately, you just don't get to hear too much of it. Alright, so that's it. Now, that's actually it this time. I am not memeing when I say that. So, time is actually going to be coming up soon. It's going to be when I touch the Grand Star, but I'm in charge of the timer on stream, so that doesn't really matter. This was a really, really, really good run. Yeah, my PB is a 3:00:58, which is second place. Just a little under 2.5 minutes behind the world record. I am planning on going for sub 3 in the future, and this is going to be a low 3:02. So not quite a marathon PB. It's like less than 10 seconds off my marathon PB, but still a really ridiculous run for a marathon. I'm really happy with how this went. So yeah. Not quite a 3:01, but you know, we take these. 3:02:03. That's a pretty darn good time. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty darn good for a marathon, and I'm very happy that I did that run went as well as it did. I was kind of nervous because my practice run was a mid 3:01, which is just nuts, and I was afraid I wouldn't match that good of a time in this run, but ended up going pretty well. You know. Now, I would show the credits, since I definitely finished ahead of my estimate, but we have a donation incentive to do. And I'm going to keep my any percent time on the splits just for the sake of it. So I don't have 6.5 hours to get to 241 stars on that file, so we're just going to, you know, use my completed 242 star file, and we're going to... And we played with Mario for 3 hours. We're going to give the other brother a time to shine. And we're going to do the 242nd star in the game, otherwise known as the perfect run. So this is a Daredevil comment, which we haven't seen in this run so far, but Daredevil comments basically mean you only have one hit or else you die. And this level has no checkpoints and is a long gauntlet of obstacle courses that you have to get through, so this is a pretty fun level for casuals. And I'm gonna skip the cutscenes because they make the cycles at the start here a bit more favorable. Although it doesn't really matter because I'm gonna be doing these infinite flutter strats to mitigate most of them. Although they don't really save time. Plus they just look cool. Alright, good first section. Again, if I get hit once at any point in the level, I will go all the way back to the beginning. So here, I don't even really have to jump. I'm keeping Yoshi for this section because he walks a lot faster than Luigi does, which is beneficial for this section. And as you can see, I barely even have to jump here. I do have to ditch Yoshi here, though, because I can't have Yoshi and Cloud Luigi at the same time, so I'm just gonna leave him there to get shot by lasers. But fortunately, he's immortal and he can never die. I'm gonna grab the Cloudflower here. We're gonna do a little sequence break by going underneath this fan. And now it's just a matter of getting through here as quickly as possible. Again, Luigi does jump higher and run faster than Mario, but he takes a lot longer to accelerate, and he's a lot slipperier. So he can be a bit weird to control at times. Oh, that's not good. I normally want to go in here with 2 clouds, not 1, but I can improvise this. I was supposed to do a camera cancel there, but I didn't think about it. So this section I just have to be careful to not get hit by lasers. Fortunately, the cycles here happen to work out nicely with your movement. Alright. I'm going to use this Cloud for a Cloud Boost at the start of this next section. So here I'm going to use Polestar Momentum to save some time here and also to make this section a lot easier. I'm just going to use Polestar's Momentum to go super high up and just fly over all these lasers, which saves some time and also just makes the section way easier. Alright, and we have 1 section left. This is probably the hardest section for most players, and definitely for speedrunners. So you only have to kill the 3 Boomerang Bros at the end to make the launch star appear, but I am going to be killing a couple other Hammer Bros just to make things a bit easier on me. So I'm going to kill this Hammer Bro, and I'm going to kill this guy so he doesn't get in my way when I'm taking on the Boomerang Bros. Alright, there we go. That setup's kind of finicky, but it works. And I can just take on these guys one at a time. Okay. They're going to be out of sync, but that's... Okay, never mind. I got to that Boomerang Bro quickly enough. I can take out this guy with a Ground Pound, and easy level. So that's it. Except, fun fact, for those who don't know, there's a 1-up here, you know, for the next part of the game you have to play. And there you go, that's the perfect run. So that was Super Mario Galaxy 2. I hope you enjoyed that run. I'm really happy with how that went. I'm really happy I got to show this game off. If you want to learn this game, or either of the Galaxy games for that matter, you should join the Super Mario Galaxy Discord. We have a Discord server for both games, and we have a really, really helpful community. I'm sure there's a lot of people you can talk to help out. We're working on some pretty good resources for people who want to get into this game and learn all the tricks and stuff. And in addition to that, I have a series of tutorials on my YouTube channel for some of the harder strats and harder levels that you are welcome to check out at any time. And you can always just hit me or any of the other Galaxy runners up if you have any questions. So that's it for me. I will throw it on over to the host. Thank you, SpeedGaming, for having me.